What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories. 5JM. Chapter 51 Saving People and Celestial Dragons. Advertisement. Damn, Hockey from Conquerors is still out of control. Seeing his masterpiece, Cross was not only not happy, but frowned, and couldn't help cursing in a low voice. His original idea was to stun the celestial dragons alone, which would cause confusion among the others, leaving no time for the two people on the ground, but his conqueror's hockey was still uncontrollable and directly knocked out the people on the whole street. They all fainted. This. Smoker on the side was stunned, looking at the people on the street in disbelief, so shocked that he couldn't even speak. At this moment, Cross suddenly rushed out from the corner of the alley. Zongzong shouted exaggeratedly, "Protect the Wylong people. Protect the Muscarad monsters." Hearing this, Smoker also reacted. Although he showed a reluctant expression, he rushed out without saying a word. You must know that on the entire street of 120 road, including a dozen soldiers of the Holy Land Defense Corps, as well as the Marine soldiers hidden around, there are very few people standing. If someone really wanted to do harm to the celestial dragons and succeeded, then things would be a big deal. Even if Cross hid well and was not found by the world government, the two people they saved would definitely be found by the CP organization's agents afterwards, and they would directly kill them to vent their anger. At this time, several Marine officers who were barely awake also saw Cross and Smoker. Although they didn't know them, they also heard what Cross yelled, and their terrified hearts relaxed a bit. However, when Cross and Smoker came to Muscarad's side, they found that the man in the black suit was still awake. Looking at the two of them. "Who are you two? A cadet sailor from our Marine school, who are you?" Facing the man's question, Cross didn't hide his identity, he just said it out, and asked a question back. "I'm Agent CP6 Rudor." This person reported his name, and it turned out to be an agent of the CP organization. After understanding the other party's identity, Smoker couldn't help but sneered. When did the CP organization become the lackey of the celestial dragons? Rudol's face froze, and his gaze towards Smoker became a little dangerous. Advertisement. Smoker. Cross scolded with a serious expression and a stern tone. But before Rudol's expression softened a bit, Cross said again, "The CP organization has always been the lackey of the celestial dragons, and this has never changed." Immediately, Rudol's face turned blue with anger, and he couldn't help saying angrily, "You two guys, show me some respect. Smoker, go and take the two on the ground away, find a doctor to save them, and leave the safety of the celestial dragons to me." Cross ignored the other party and said directly to Smoker. He could feel that the man and woman who had been shot on the ground still had a faint breath. Although their lives were dying, if they could seek medical treatment in time, it might not be impossible to save their lives. Smoker glanced at Cross, nodded silently, his hands turned into two white smoke columns, wrapped around the two people on the ground, lifted them up, and turned to leave. Quote. At this time, Rudol saw that Smoker was about to leave, and quickly stopped him. "No. You can't leave. The situation is unknown now, you must stay to protect the venerable Muscarad Street." Cross reached out to stop Rudol, stared at him sharply, and said in a deep voice, "It's your duty to protect the celestial dragons, and our Marine is more about protecting innocent people. What's more, if even I can't protect the celestial dragons, it's safe, just wait for Vice Admiral and Admirals from Naval Headquarters to arrive." Rudol was a little annoyed, watching Smoker go further and further away, he couldn't help cursing at Cross. "You be **********, you're just a cadet sailor from the Marine school, don't pretend to be a big shot here. If the celestial dragons get even the slightest bit of damage, I will definitely send you to the deep sea prison." "Oh." Cross smiled disdainfully, and half teasingly half sarcastically said, "If the celestial dragons are hurt, you will only be punished like me. Maybe the two of us will be in the deep sea prison." Companion. Me. Ludor was dumb for a moment, and his face became extremely pale. Yes, if the celestial dragons are harmed, he's the guardian. He will definitely be punished with the most severe punishment. Okay, let's send this venerable Muscarad saint back to Red Harbor safely. Cross waved towards the sky. In the next second, there were a few eagle cries in the sky. Advertisement. Rudol looked up, and saw a huge silver giant eagle falling rapidly from the sky, wrapped in a strong gust of wind, its heavy body landed beside Cross with a bang. In addition, there are several other giant birds hovering in the sky, as if they are on guard for something. Quote. Rudol was dumbfounded, and couldn't believe that there was such a giant silver eagle with a wingspan of more than 5 meters in the world. Silver white feathers covered the body of this giant eagle, and its body glowed with a faint metallic luster under the sunlight. It didn't look like a bird born in nature, but more like some kind of artwork. Afterwards, the silver giant eagle lifted its feet and grabbed the unconscious Muscarad on the ground with its broad claws. Then, it flapped its wings, and suddenly a gust of wind was raised, and it flew up with a, "Huh. Hey, this way is too disrespectful to celestial dragons." Rudol held his head in horror, his eyeballs protruding out of fright. "Put Muscarad on the back of this giant eagle, why grab it with its claws? This shape is like an eagle catching its prey. It's just blasphemy. If you want to be together, sit on it." Cross glanced at Rudol, and said slowly, "If you don't want to, it will fly directly to Red Harbor, and you can tell the people over there to receive it." No. Rudolph waved his hands again and again, almost peeing in fear. I was sitting on the back of the giant silver eagle, but the celestial dragons were grabbed by the giant silver eagle's claws. If someone else saw this, they would definitely be punished for disrespect to the celestial dragons. Hearing Rudolph's refusal, the 0.9 silver giant eagle didn't stop, and flew high with its wings, whistling in turbulent airflow, and flew in the direction of Red Harbor like a sharp silver arrow. Cough cough cough. Rudolph stretched out his hand, wanting to say something, but was choked back by a burst of dust. The celestial dragons are already safe, and the rest will be handled by your CP organization. Cross said meaningfully. You guys should look into this matter carefully. Why are there so many people in a coma? At the same time, in another alley next to him, a figure emerged from the shadows in the corner. His face was covered by long hair, and the spectacle lenses on his face reflected a glint of light. He, what an interesting brother Marine. Unexpectedly, a man with Conqueror's hockey appeared in Marine. Advertisement Chapter 52 Smokers Confusion and 7 Warlords of the Sea Proposal. Advertisement. Island 66 Marine Base. Smoker stood in the dark and cold morgue, looking expressionlessly at the 2 corpses covered in white cloth in front of him. Suddenly, there was a creaking door push, and someone walked into the morgue. Looks like they couldn't be saved. Cross came to Smoker's side, and stared blankly at the 2 corpses covered with white cloth on the steel frame bed. The man was shot 4 times, and the woman was shot 3 times. It was too late when they were delivered, and the blood was almost gone. Smoker said coldly. Cross didn't speak, but raised his hand to lift the white cloth on the faces of the 2, and 2 pale, terrified faces appeared in his eyes, as if they were accusing the injustice of this world wish. Cross has already found out the details of what happened. The man and woman in front of him are brothers and sisters. It was because the dead man was strong enough and the dead woman was beautiful enough, so they were spotted by the celestial dragons who came out to play, and they had to be captured by force. The 2 acted as their own slaves. Suddenly becoming slaves for no reason, the siblings were naturally unwilling, but the siblings did not dare to resist the celestial dragons, so they wanted to take advantage of this and escape, but they underestimated the soldiers of the Holy Land Defense Legion, and were arrested before fleeing far % living. It became clear later that the enraged Muscard sank directly at the 2 men in the street, venting his anger by means of execution and torture. Just like that, Cross and Smoker didn't speak, and stood quietly in the dark and cold morgue, as if they were mourning silently. Is this what Marines' so-called justice looks like? They say they want to protect innocent people, but they actually protect celestial dragons who are doing evil. Is this behavior also justice? After a while, Smoker's slightly hoarse voice sounded, and Cross turned his head to look, only to find that the usually fierce Smoker's face was pale, and his eyes revealed confusion. Cross understands that the first time he sees celestial dragons' tyrannical deeds, there is actually Marine guarding him. This is undoubtedly a major blow to Smoker who believes in justice. Smoker, I'm not in the mood to say something to you right now. Cross said indifferently, you just have to think about it. If the world didn't have Marines fighting pirates and maintaining justice and order, what would this world be like? What will it look like? You are not a child anymore. You should understand that in the adult world, it is never black and white. Advertisement. That's all I have to say. What you think and decide is your own business. I only hope that you will not live up to the word, justice. After finishing speaking, Cross took another deep look at the 2 brothers and sisters on the steel frame bed, as if wanting to remember each other's appearance in his heart, then raised his hand to cover the 2 of them with a white cloth, then turned around and left decisively, leaving only Smoker as alone in the morgue. At the same time, the sudden coma of celestial dragons, including the coma of a whole street, caused quite a stir within the Marine and world government. In particular, the giant silver eagle sent by Cross grabbed a celestial dragons in the way of catching prey, and sent them to Red Harbor in full view, leaving the Marine soldiers and CP agents in charge of responding dumbfounded. Especially those reporters who were afraid of chaos in the world, the camera phone bugs in their hands kept flashing, and they took countless pictures of Muscarood's ugly appearance. Fortunately, the agents of the CP organization reacted quickly, and decisively confiscated the camera phone bugs on all reporters, and deleted all the photos about Muscarad Street. If this matter is exposed, it will undoubtedly greatly hit the power of the world government. It's a pity that the world government has no way to punish the culprit of this incident. After all, Cross protected the safety of Muscarad, and did not make the attack on the celestial dragons worse. It can even be said that Cross not only has no crime, but also has merit. In fact, the agents of the CP organization have long since found out the cause of the celestial dragons coma incident. They were stunned by Conqueror's hockey, and they even suspected Cross, because Cross had Conqueror's hockey, and the agents of the CP organization also knew. However, all this is just speculation, and the agents responsible for the case have absolutely no evidence to prove that it was Cross. And even Smoker, who was in charge of saving people, was investigated, but Smoker didn't have Conqueror's hockey at all, and the investigation was useless. Although it involves the distinguished celestial dragons, naval headquarters will not be a random target. If there is no evidence, even if the 5 elders ask to arrest someone, they will probably be reprimanded by the Marine executives. Faced with such a situation, the 5 elders in Holy Land, Mariajoy had no choice but to pinch their noses and reward Cross reluctantly. In addition, 5 elders also sent out the agents of the CP organization to search for the culprit of the incident. As a result, the head of the CP organization caught in the middle was in bad luck. Advertisement. Conqueror's hockey is invisible and colorless. How can I check this T%M%D? In this way, the CP organization investigated for several days, but found no ghosts. Instead, they arrested many pirates, gangsters and other criminals on the Sabayati archipelago. Of course, the spokesperson of the world government did not mention the real reason for the coma of celestial dragons, but replaced Conqueror's hockey with a special kind of drug, saying that those ghosts wanted to kidnap celestial dragons, so they used the drug confused people on the street. After a few days of turmoil, all 50 kings who came to participate in the World Summit arrived, and this incident was barely over, allowing the CP organization to refocus on the safety of the Holy Land Mariajoy. The world government has about 170 member countries, and every 4 years, 50 kings will come to the Holy Land Mariajoy to hold the World Summit to discuss issues related to worldwide security and order. However, when 50 countries gather under one roof, how can it be said that they will get along with each other in the future? Not to mention that there are internal problems in each country. Just say that the era of great pirates set off by Goldo Luogia, Galdi Luogia, has come to the 8th year, and its 790 wave is still intensifying. Until the day of recovery. Not to mention many small countries, even those big and powerful countries are also suffering from the plight of being harassed by pirates. Especially in the countries located in the second half of the Grand Line, powerful monster-like big pirates are vying for the supremacy. Territory, resources, weapon technology, are all the targets of the competition. As a result, many countries have become victims of war. Although the great pirates of the previous era, such as Akoku, Silver Axe, and Captain John, are dying, the great pirates of the new era are also rising. Facing the competition for pirate hegemony, Marine's powerlessness made these countries very dissatisfied, and they demanded that the world government and Marine calm down the violent sea as soon as possible. Thus, 7 warlords of the sea, a proposal more than 10 years ago, was put forward again. At the beginning of the original plot, 7 warlords of the sea. 4 emperors and naval headquarters were called the 3 major powers of the Grand Line, but I speculate that before the appearance of the Great Pirate Era, when the 4 emperors pattern had not yet formed, 7 warlords of the sea should not be taken seriously, because Marine has the ability to deal with pirates, so there is no need to complement the members of 7 warlords of the sea, and use this strategy of pirates to deal with pirates. However, until Luogia reached the top of One Piece and set off the era of great pirates, the power of pirates expanded rapidly, and the emergence of the 4 emperors group later made the power of Marine and pirates somewhat unbalanced, so it was necessary to win over pirates. Balanced with 7 warlords of the sea. My speculation above only represents my personal opinion, don't spray if you don't like it. Advertisement Chapter 53. Don't overestimate me. Advertisement. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, boom, boom. Fire. Manfin, catch up. Don't let those pirates escape. In the endless sea, fierce cannons are roaring, a warship and a pirate ship are performing ocean-like speed and passion, chasing and fleeing. Yawn. Cross rubbed his eyes in distress, let out a long breath, then looked at the busy people on the deck, and couldn't help saying, I've been chasing for nearly a day. Teacher Zephyr, do you really want me to take action? They have to get used to this kind of battle. Sitting under the main mast, Zephyr stared at the fleeing pirate ship a few hundred meters away, and said slowly, after all, there are still very few capable people like you, and this kind of pursuit at sea is the norm. No matter how fast a sailing ship sails on the sea, it cannot be as fast as a bird with wings. As long as Cross sends flying living creatures to intercept enemy ships from the air and destroy the sails of the enemy ships, no pirate ship will be able to escape. It's just that in this way, other students can't really learn the conventional sea pursuit, which is not good for their future. All right. Cross curled his lips in boredom. Students in the elite class will be taught in accordance with their aptitude, so on the entire ship, only Cross does not need to undergo this kind of routine sea pursuit training, even Smoker needs it. Because although Smoker can fly, due to the characteristics of fruit ability, firstly, the speed of long-distance flight is not too fast, and secondly, it will be affected by sea wind. Once encountering severe sea wind, it is safer for Smoker to stay on board. Advertisement. Suddenly, Zephyr changed the topic and asked, by the way, you also know the topics discussed at World Summit. What do you think about the completion of 7 Warlords of the Sea members and the system of 7 Warlords of the Sea? Look. I think it's okay to complete 7 Warlords of the Sea members, and 7 Warlords of the Sea system. I also think it's not bad. Cross narrowed his eyes and thought for a while. Seconds, I still expressed my own thoughts on seeing this system. Zephyr frowned and said, if you are more specific, why are you optimistic about the 7 Warlords of the Sea system? It's very simple. Since the execution in Rog Town, the era of great pirates has kicked off, and the power of the pirate side has grown rapidly, and Marine has fallen into a disadvantage. Cross spread his hands and talked eloquently. If things go on for a long time, once the power of the two sides is out of balance, Marine will definitely not be able to protect the safety and order of the entire sea. Therefore, being able to win over some powerful pirates can restrain the growth of pirate forces to a certain extent, and strengthen Marine's power. Disadvantage. But, don't you think it's against justice to win over pirates? Zephyr said with some concern. The existence of celestial dragons is against justice, not to mention that Marine needs to protect celestial dragons, which is a blasphemy against the word justice. Cross sneered and mocked. You know, these two things can't be considered at the same time. Zephyr frowned and said in a deep voice. No, it seems to me that there is no difference between the two things. Cross shook his head and said, although I don't know why Marine must follow the order of the world government to protect celestial dragons, but I know that if Marine doesn't protect celestial dragons, It will definitely cause conflicts between Marine and world government, which will affect the stability and order of the entire world. Therefore, Marine recruits pirates to maintain the order and stability of the sea. There is not much difference between the two. Zephyr's eyes flickered, and he was silent for a long time. As a former Marine admiral, he knows many secrets of the world government and Marine, but he does not speak out the secrets. What's more, he also understands that what Cross said is reasonable, but he himself cannot accept the alliance with the pirates. Mr. Zephyr, the completion of open black lens bracket 7 warlords of the sea close black lens bracket members is a general trend, because Marine needs this power to maintain the balance of the sea, but open black lens bracket 7 warlords of the sea close black lens bracket also needs to be restrained, otherwise some guys with ulterior motives will become open black lens bracket 7 warlords of the sea close black lens bracket after 7 warlords of the sea, big things will happen. Cross said slowly, looking at the sea in the distance. Then what do you think? Zephyr looked at Cross with a surprised expression, and asked in a concentrated voice. I don't have any thoughts yet. Cross shook his head, and said with a smile, and I'm just a small person now, and the big things like 7 warlords of the sea are considered by big people in Marine and world government. Zephyr frowned, staring at Cross for a long time without saying a word. Advertisement. Although Cross is still just a cadet sailor at the Marine school, the high level inside Marine has already determined that Cross will definitely become one of the important pillars of Marine in the future. Therefore, if Cross has any good suggestions to submit to naval headquarters, it may not be recognized by the Marine high level. Are you hiding your clumsiness on purpose? At this time, Cross found that Zephyr looked at him with strange eyes, and couldn't help but understand something in his heart. Hey, don't make up your mind. I really can't think of any useful suggestions. If I think of any good suggestions, I will definitely submit them. This will not only increase my qualifications and achievements, but also prevent the Alabasta and Dressrosa incidents of pirates from happening, and reduce the sacrifice of countless people. But in my previous life, I was just an ordinary person with limited intelligence. In this life, I was just an enhanced muscle without enhanced intelligence. Don't overestimate me. At this time, the warship's triple-mounted main guns fired a salvo, and one of the shells happened to hit the main mast of the enemy pirate ship. The main mast, which was nearly 30 meters high, was interrupted on the spot. The pirate ship suddenly lost several knots of speed. Hit the opponent's mainmast. Look, the opponent's boat has slowed down. The third team took their weapons and prepared to jump gang tactics. Come up quickly. The artillery deck on the first floor, Qian Zhaohao, all the artillery is loaded with grape shells, ready to approach and shoot. Immediately, the morale of the people on the warship was boosted, and they all cheered in unison. Some of the backup gunners picked up their muskets, scimitars, and long swords one after another, and rushed to the enemy ship impatiently to show their strength. Oh, it seems that this game of cat and mouse is finally coming to an end. Seeing this, Cross quickly changed the topic. Zephyr took a deep look at Cross, then stood up, took out a telescope from his pocket, and observed the reaction of the pirate ship in front. After World Summit ended, the battleship of Germa 66 came to pick up Judge, so that the follow-up escort did not bother Zephyr, so Zephyr formally led the trainee sailors of Marine School to embark on the actual combat training against pirates the road. And the pirate ship ahead was one of the targets they captured. Advertisement Chapter 54 The Bloody Pirates, 4,000 words, 2 chapters in 1. Advertisement. Shoot all. Counterattack. Quick counterattack. The third team, follow me. Come on, drive this group of sailors into the sea to feed the fish. The fierce shouts of killing echoed in my ears, and the deck of the blood-stained pirate ship was full of corpses, blood and deep holes. Hodder Wise gritted his teeth and stared viciously at the huge warship that was close at hand, but his heart was full of despair. His blooded pirate ship was only over 40 meters long, but the warship in front of him had an astonishing length of more than 100 meters. This was a giant ship he had never seen before. The key point is that the giant ship of Marine not only has powerful firepower, but also is not slow at all. It chased him for nearly a day, but he still couldn't run away. The hope of escape. The most important thing is that Hodder Wise is going to fight desperately, relying on the tactics of jumping gangs to fight back and seize the opportunity to capture the Marine warship. Who would have thought that on the deck of the blooded pirate ship, more than 100 gunners and sailors who were ready to jump gang hadn't even thrown out the hook rope in their hands. They saw the warship of Marine approaching condescendingly come over, more than a dozen cannons on the first floor of the stone boat string-fired grape shells at the same time. On the spot, hundreds of grape-sized iron beads formed a barrage of bullets, forming a terrifying covering blow, clearing out the deck crew of the pirate ship, blooded, in just one wave. Hodder Wise saw at a glance that the entire deck of the blooded pirate ship was almost smeared with a layer of viscous blood on the blood and minced meat, and there were stumps of subordinates everywhere. There are less than 30 survivors of the mutilated corpses, or the severely wounded with severed limbs and wailing. Then, Howard Wise saw on the deck of the opposite warship, a large number of Marine soldiers poked their heads out, and threw dozens of hook ropes and iron cables towards the pirate ship, blooded, connecting the two ships together. In the next moment, dozens of hundreds of Marine soldiers armed with muskets and scimitars, or with the help of hook ropes and iron cables, or jumped down, all jumped one after another and rushed onto the pirate ship, blooded. The surviving pirates were fighting. Fortunately, there are still many pirates on the lower deck and cabin of the blooded pirate ship, and they climbed out through the stairs one after another, fighting with the attacking Marine soldiers. It's useless, you can't escape. Hina's pretty face was serious, and she immediately took the lead, and suddenly threw her arm towards the nearest pirate, but passed through the pirate's body strangely. As a result, before the pirate could react, he found that he had been imprisoned by the round iron bars since 707, unable to move. Woman, let me, Lord Man, kill you. A fat man with a fat body and a white cloth full of gray stains stopped in front of Hina, his eyes greedily sizing up Hina, holding a half-meter long bone-chopping knife, full of evil spirits. The battle captain of the blood pirates, the bounty is 39 million Baileys, butcher, man. I arrest you in the name of justice. Hina looked at the pirate in front of her with a pretty face, he rushed up without hesitation. Ahahaha, I'm going to chop your bones into pieces. Man laughed strangely, the fat on his face was trembling, he fiercely raised the bone-chopping knife in his hand, and chopped at Hina who was rushing towards him. Go. Threshold black spear. Hina nimbly avoided the bone-chopping knife's attack, walked around behind the opponent, and her arm quickly turned into a black iron bar, piercing Man's waist like a spear. BCH, you are courting death. Man let out a cry of pain, turned around angrily, raised the bone-chopping knife in his hand and slashed at Hina again. Immediately, instead of retreating, Hina advanced, her arm quickly passed through Man's body, turning the black gun into a circular iron chain on the spot, trapping Man's body instantly. Thump. Man couldn't move, and fell heavily to the ground. Hina is a paramesha cage fruit-capable person, and everything that passes through my body will be locked. Hina proudly said. Shoot. Kill these sailors. Bang, 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 bang. On the other side, several pirates clamored and raised their muskets, and pulled the trigger together. After a few, bang bang bang, gunshots, several lead bullets flew out, just hitting Gaspar's the body is pierced with several holes. Gaspard turned his head with an unhappy expression, and glared at the pirates angrily. And those pirates looked at the several transparent holes on Gaspar's body that were shot by the lead bullets. There was no blood flowing out, but a strange green substance, which was still healing rapidly, and they couldn't help showing their blood. Terrified look. Gummy spike chariot. In the next second, Gaspard let out a low cry, opened his arms in a posture ready to embrace, and countless conical green spikes appeared on his body, and strode forward. Bang. On the spot, several pirates couldn't dodge in time, and were directly hit by Gaspard, and then they were pierced into a sieve by the green spikes on his body, and a big hole was punched out along with the solid wood wall of the captain's cabin, causing countless pieces of wood to splash out. Messy ball. Advertisement. Not far away, Barry Good's head was suspended in midair like a ghost, and his body turned into dozens of spherical particles, like a kicked football, hitting the pirates in all directions quickly and accurately. Hey, it hurts me, ghost. More than a dozen pirates were beaten, their bones were broken, and they fled desperately, crying for their father and mother. Wheel spinning strike. Next to him, Sha Lin Kuer was wearing a horned hood and red goggles, his hands turned into wheels turning rapidly, perfectly demonstrating what it means to say, the speed of the car is too fast, and the wheels run over the face. It's just that those pirates' faces are not just a wheel mark, but their noses have been crushed, their eyeballs have been crushed, and their face bones have been crushed. Hodder Wise looked at the scene in front of him, his heart was cold. He never expected that there are so many demon fruit powers on this marine warship. Could it be that this warship is escorting some kind of big pirate? Captain of the Bloodman Pirates, the reward is 58 million Baileys. Bloodman, Hodder Wise, in the name of justice, I arrest you. Suddenly, a man whose lower body was covered in smoke and whose upper body was a man with short silver hair and a fierce face, holding a 10-mile in his hand, stopped in front of Wise. As early as on the warship, Smoker had his eye on this bald man wearing a brown captain's coat, holding a sailor's scimitar with gilded gauntlets, and a pistol in his waist. Wise stared at the sea soldier in front of him, and understood what kind of ability user he was with strange abilities. But the matter has come to this, the only thing to do is to fight hard. From a street gangster to a big pirate with a bounty of 58 million Baileys, he naturally did a lot of evil things such as burning, killing and looting, all thanks to his ruthlessness. B********** D Marine, you ruined my dream. Wise roared full of anger, with a hysterical distorted expression on his face, he swung the sailor machete in his hand, and slashed towards Smoker in front of him. Clang. 10 hands supported the sailor's scimitar, and the collision between the two produced a few sparks, which also aroused a sharp gust of wind that spread out in all directions. Immediately, Smoker stepped forward, grabbing Wise's neck with his free left hand. In an instant, Wise quickly took out the flintlock gun in his waist with his left hand, and fired a shot at Smoker like lightning. Boom. There was a shot. Smoker's head exploded suddenly, turning into a cloud of smoke. Nani. Wise was shocked, and then saw the headless sailor kept moving, still grabbing towards his neck, so scared that he quickly rolled on the spot and narrowly escaped Smoker's capture. Damn it, it's actually Logia's ability user. Wise cursed in a low voice, seeing wisps of smoke gathering on Smoker's neck and returning to his head. Then, Smoker rushed over again, waved his 10 hands and hit Wise on the head. Clang, 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 clang. Not to be outdone, Wise slashed the sailor machete in his hand continuously, and collided with Smoker's 10 hands continuously, making harsh metal collision sounds. It's a pity that although Wise's sword skills are very strong, he can't cause a little damage when he slashes on Smoker's body continuously. Instead, Smoker seizes the opportunity to hit him several times and almost vomits blood. At this moment, Smoker turned into smoke, and quickly circled around Wise's back, with 10 hands from top to bottom, smashing out like a spear. Boom. Wise rolled on a donkey, narrowly avoiding the attack of 10 hands, but the oak deck in place was pierced by 10 hands. Hotter Wise, get caught. At this moment, Uchimura stepped forward, and the samurai sword in his hand turned into a sharp ponytail, crossing towards Wise's neck. Wise got up quickly, avoiding Uchimura's slash again, and then fought with Uchimura with the sailor's scimitar in his hand. However, Wise is also a big pirate with a bounty of 56 million Baileys, and he is not an existence that Uchimura, a trainee recruit, can compete with. Clang, 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 clang. In a blink of an eye, the two of them each made a dozen or so knives, and saw the sailor's scimitar in Wise's hand waving like the wind. Advertisement. However, Wise became more and more frightened, because he didn't expect that any sailor he met would have such strength. It was really terrifying. Iron body. Suddenly, a long arm with two elbows stretched out, stopped between Wise and Uchimura, and hit the sailor's scimitar in Wise's hand like an iron rod. Scandium. The sharp sailor's scimitar seemed to be chopped on a real iron bar, and there was a sound of metal collision, and the force of the shock made Wise feel his palms go numb. What is this? Is it some kind of ability? Wise's complexion changed slightly, and he took a step back subconsciously, and then saw that the owner of that strange long arm was a man with dark brown skin, and he rushed towards him, waving his long arms like steel whips out. By Mo. Suddenly, just when Wise wanted to avoid the opponent's frontal attack, a spiral column of smoke struck from behind him, quickly wrapped around his body, and directly captured him in midair. What is this? Wise looked terrified and kept struggling. Finger pistol 5. In the next second, Shuzo's expression was cold, and he jumped up, and the 5 fingers of his right hand came out in the shape of eagle claws, piercing Wise's body without any hindrance. Puff 1. Accompanied by the light sound of entering the flesh, Shuzo withdrew his arm and landed on the deck, while Wise's chest already had 5 bloody blood holes, as if hit by lead bullets fired from a musket. Whoa. Wise lowered his head in disbelief, looking at the 5 blood holes on his chest. The smell of rust filled his mouth and nose, causing him to spit out a big mouthful of blood. Battlefield is not. The arena allows people to fight one-on-one. Marine has the advantage now. Naturally, it is necessary to resolve the battle as quickly as possible and reduce casualties. This is what Marine officers must do. Affection. In the face of Shuzo's heavy blow, the pirate who offered a bounty of 56 million Baileys, Bloodman Hotter Wise, although he did not die, was seriously injured and completely lost his fighting power. 0. The battle on the blooded pirate ship did not last long. After the captain of the bloody pirates, Butcher, Man, was captured, he lost the captain, Bloodman, Huoda. Wise, his deputy captain, snipers, navigators and other cadres and fighters were also defeated successively, or were killed on the spot, or fell to the ground with serious injuries. Facing the powerful elite sailors of Smoker, Hina, Gaspard, Shuzo and others, all members of the Bloodman pirates were surrounded and wiped out, and no one slipped through the net. In the end, the pursuit battle, which lasted for nearly a day, finally came to an end with Marine's victory. In this fierce battle, from the captain to the ordinary crew, 36% of the Blood pirates were killed or arrested. 17 Marines were killed and 26 were injured. The casualty ratio reached about 1.8.4, which can be described as a complete victory. However, the casualties on Marine's side were future officers and the backbone of Marine's future. The death of 17 students still made Zephyr feel heartbroken. But there is no way to do this. If there is no real combat, no matter how good the talent is, there is no way to grow it. Only after going through the cruel actual battle like the big waves washing the sand, can these surviving students truly become the future of Marine and protect innocent people. Hegu sees the beginning and end of the small stone world, the sea watches the origin of the world. Sea knowing greater than small stone world no ending with hair, the sea also knows the end of the world. Dragon Gate lures you into your heart, old way, up, so lead me to the path I should walk. Longman Guide. Painful child double pack WO. Da Lao Q U open angle bracket bow UO open angle bracket G, he embraces me with a big and warm heart. 11. Under the afterglow of the setting sun, the deep and solemn singing echoed over the sea, and everyone stood on the deck of the warship and sang in unison to see off their dead colleagues. Pirates have pirate songs, and Marines have Marine songs. This song, Hai Dao, doesn't make people's hearts surge and blood boil, but some are just low, solemn and sad. Everyone sang this song in the hope that the sea would guide the dead Marine soldiers, heal their pain, and return to the peaceful depths of the sea. Advertisement Chapter 55 MARINEG 2 Branch. Advertisement. The first half of the Grand Line MARINEG 2 Branch. The huge Marine training ship slowly entered the port, and under the watchful eyes of many sailors on the shore, it docked at the berth of the dock. The board was lowered from the warship, and Cross followed Zephyr, and went ashore with Smoker, Hina, Shuzo and others first. Long time no see, Mr. Zephyr. Yo, Cross, Smoker, long time no see. Pelusolino walked towards him, smoking a cigarette, with a casual look, followed by several Marine generals. That's right, the base chief of the G2 branch is Pelusolino, an old acquaintance of Cross, and his subordinates, Stallo Berry Rear Admiral, Major General Kodalu, and others are also acquaintances. Poor Solino Vice Admiral, long time no see. Would you like a cigar? Cross and several others responded one after another. Zephyr glanced at Pelusolino with some disgust, and asked in a bad tone, Poor Solino, did I disturb you? Hey, Teacher Zephyr is too outrageous, but I'm planning an operation these few days. Pelusolino didn't care, but smiled, But thank you for helping to get rid of the Blood Pirates group, then I can deal with one less opponent. When Zephyr retired and went to the Marine School to teach and reform, Pelusolino was one of Zephyr's first students. However, as a Logia sparkling fruit-capable user, Pelusolino was called a monster by the students at the same time because of his outstanding performance against Yamato, but he was also the one who was most at odds with Zephyr among all the students. Therefore, Pelusolino was not at all embarrassed to see Zephyr's indifferent attitude. You slacker, do you still have this drive? Zephyr asked suspiciously. Don't say that, Teacher Zephyr, if you want to talk about energy, you are always strong. Pelusolino said slowly. Shout, stop flattering me. Zephyr didn't give the other party a good face, and said directly, the captives of the Bloodman pirates will be handed over to you, and you can send them to the deep sea prison together at that time. Leave this trivial matter to me, Teacher Zephyr. Pelusolino exhaled a puff of smoke, pouted his lips and said leisurely, by the way, the intelligence department found a small island occupied by pirates, and it is within my jurisdiction. I am gathering troops to clear that island. Is Teacher Zephyr interested in participating? Advertisement. The small island occupied by pirates. Zephyr raised his eyebrows, and said with interest, tell me about this kind of thing carefully. A few days later, the first half of the Grand Line Guli Island. Boom 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. Several warships were moored at sea, with the black, G2 feet logo on the huge white sails, the triple main guns on the bow roared like thunder, and the black shells came out one by one, rapidly flying in the sky, accompanied by the screaming sound of piercing the sky. It fell on the island like raindrops, setting off a deafening roar of arrogance. The ground was shaking violently, and the violent shock wave from the huge explosion swept out with scorching flames, destroying all the houses, buildings, people and livestock, flowers, plants and trees within the range. The power of steel and fire is simply beyond Kamui's ability to be resisted by mortals. Taking advantage of the cover of the gunfire of the warship, hundreds of sailors rowed a dozen small boats and forcibly landed on the beach of the small island. Gee, roar. At the same time, various cries, including the chirping of eagles, came from above their heads. Many marine soldiers looked up and saw big birds flying past their heads, setting off gusts of wind. One step rushed towards the port ahead. The moment Cross stepped on the beach, seeing the strong gunpowder smoke filling the island, he couldn't help but took a deep breath, full of the pungent smell of gunpowder. Attack. Not long after, some soldiers had just disembarked and assembled on the soft sand. Kadalu Rear Admiral couldn't wait to wave his samurai sword, and loudly commanded the sailors to kill towards the shore port not far away. Bing is very fast. Kadalu Rear Admiral wants to take advantage of the pirates in the port before they can react, and rush into the city in one fell swoop. The idea is not wrong. Sure enough, with the cover of large caliber naval guns and the air support of activated creatures, the pirates in the port had already suffered heavy casualties, making the marine led by Kadalu Rear Admiral, which numbered no more than 100, feel like a no man's land. Almost without encountering much resistance, they rushed into the port. Subsequently, the marine soldiers who landed on the island also rushed into the port one after another. Don't be afraid, kill. Advertisement. In the name of justice, destroy these pirates. Asking for flowers. Damn it, I'm fighting with you. Don't be messy. Don't panic. Ah. Fierce shouts of killing came from everywhere. Cross held open black lens bracket Jingsho close black lens bracket, and strolled in the ruined port town like a stroll, just waving the long knife from time to time, aiming at his buckshot and cannonballs. Marine's attack was very smooth, because the pirates in the port town had already been defeated by the bombardment of large-caliber naval guns. We only saw Marine soldiers in a group of a dozen, with muskets and bazookas killing the enemy from a distance, and swords blocking the enemy nearby. Before the pirates reorganized their formation, they were killed and retreated, leaving countless corpses. Suddenly, a roar full of anger came from behind the rammed earth wall on the right. B*********** D Marine, don't underestimate me, Mountain Ghost, Gemido. Bang. The next moment, the thick rammed earth wall exploded, and in the mud splashed all over the sky, a figure flew upside down and fell heavily to the ground. Ah, Kadalu Rear Admiral, are you all right? Cross looked at the man in front of him with a surprised expression, and asked involuntarily. On the beach before, it was Kadalu Rear Admiral who commanded the marine soldiers who had just landed to launch an attack on the port town. I didn't expect to see him for a while, and he became so embarrassed. Obviously, he encountered a difficult guy. Ouch ouch. As soon as he finished speaking, he saw a monster-like figure appearing at the gap in the rammed earth wall, hammering his chest with his fists constantly, and uttered a strange cry. It makes the branches of the surrounding trees tremble. This monster has a big and long head, a dark face, raised nasal bones, protruding snout, thick jaws, nostrils pointing forward and downward, and only the chin has a white beard. It has a strong body close to 4 meters tall, covered with dark gray hair, and walks upright. With such a terrifying appearance, it is not an exaggeration to say that it is a mountain ghost. Rookie, stay away, this is not a battle you can participate in. Seeing the monster, Kadalu's expression changed. He quickly got up from the ground, and waved Cross away, not even wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth. Seeing this, Cross took out a stack of bounty orders from his bosom, looked through them carefully, and said to himself, I'll look for it. I found it. The bounty is 94 million Baileys. Gemido Pirates Captain of the Regiment, Mountain Ghost Gemido, Zone Ability User, Monkey Fruit Ghost Baboon Form Door. Advertisement Chapter 56 Factional Controversy. Advertisement. Cross took out one from the stack of reward orders in his hand, and compared it slightly. The photo on it was almost exactly the same as the monster in front of him. Roar. At this moment, the monster who claimed to be Mountain Ghost, Gemodo, uttered a roar at Kotalu, then bent down and ran towards him on all fours. Stop being arrogant. I, Kotalu, will definitely arrest you in the name of justice. Kotalu looked nervous, his forehead was sweating, he clenched his samurai sword with both hands, shouted loudly, and slashed at the oncoming monster. However, in the next second, Gemodo suddenly jumped, jumping directly over Kenpi's head. Kotalu swung his saber in the air, and turned around quickly, only to see Gemodo in the shape of a ghost baboon close at hand, raising his black fist the size of a casserole and punching him head on. Hearing a muffled sound of bang, Gemodo's 987 punch was fast and hard. Kotalu had no time to react, he was hit with peach blossoms all over his face, and his whole body fell backwards. When he leaned back, his body flew upside down under the impetus of a powerful force. Rumble. Immediately, Kotalu turned into a black shadow and smashed into the ruins of houses next to the street in an instant, setting off a cloud of smoke and dust. G% trough. Seeing this scene, Cross couldn't help covering his face, with an expression of not being able to bear to look directly. There is one thing to say, the strength of this rear admiral is indeed a bit worrying, and I don't know how he climbed to the position of rear admiral. Ouch ouch. Gemodo screamed excitedly, jumping up and down and beating his chest non-stop. Long live Captain Gemodo. A mere marine, how could it be Captain Gemodo's opponent? Captain Gemodo is the man who will become the One Piece. Suddenly, a group of more than a dozen pirates ran out from several nearby houses, cheered around Gemodo, and kept saying all kinds of flattering words in a flattering manner. One Piece. Advertisement. Gemodo grinned, and suddenly stretched out his hand to grab a pirate, grabbed the opponent's head with his wide palm and pulled him closer to him, and said with a deep smile, "It's up to you to talk about this kind of thing." Hui-ow-ah. In the ferocious laughter, Gemodo squeezed the opponent's head like a balloon, and the red blood mixed with the white brain, covered his palm. Immediately, everyone trembled and looked at the ferocious Gemodo in horror, so frightened that they dared not even speak. Ouch ouch. Gemodo licked the blood and brains on his palm bloodthirstily, and couldn't help but let out a strange laugh, excited to trembling all over. Hey, you ugly ghost, are you too happy? At this time, Cross put away the reward order, and shouted at Gemodo in disgust. Suddenly interrupted, Gemodo turned his head and stared fiercely at Cross, the evil spirit all over his body surged like a tide. The dozen or so pirates around were all chilling, so frightened that they didn't even dare to breathe. It's actually a brat. Gemodo sized Cross up and asked doubtfully, is it a brat pretending to be marine? To be honest, I don't really like people calling me a brat. With a cold face, Cross brazenly raised the jingsho in his hand and waved it out. One-shot flow shockwave, rumbling. In an instant, a violent knife wind visible to the naked eye erupted, tearing the ground apart with incomparable rage. Open black lens bracket. Nani. Gemodo and the others stared wide-eyed, before reacting in the future, they were enveloped by the sudden violent blade wind, and were blown away like straw in the strong wind. Ah, help. A group of people screamed, danced and flew tens of meters in midair, and then, rumbled, on the roofs of houses, setting off a large cloud of smoke and dust. Advertisement. Cross also covered his face with his hands to prevent dust from entering his eyes. Suddenly, a newspaper that was still in good condition came from nowhere with the wind and fell in front of him. Cross let out a little gasp, stretched out his hand to grab the newspaper, and unfolded it to read it. I only saw a photo of Kuzan on the main page of the newspaper, which happened to be a few days ago. In the photo above, Kuzan looks cold, holding an ice blade, as if he is somewhere in a vast ice field, with a pirate ship frozen on the ice field in the background. Interesting. Cross quickly browsed the contents of the newspaper, only to know that Naval Headquarters also planned a military operation a few days ago. It turned out that after the World Summit ended, the Roberts Legion was unwilling to be successful, so they kept hovering in the first half of the Grand Line, trying to wait for an opportunity to attack the Germa Kingdom. However, the target of the large fleet of the Roberts Legion is too large, coupled with the large number of people, it always needs to dock for supplies, so it was found by the Marine Intelligence Section and the CP organization. Not long ago, Naval Headquarters sent a Kuzan-based Marine fleet, united with Germa 66, and attacked Roberts' Corps in the waters near Guy Island. After a battle between the two sides, the joint army of Marine and Germa 66 won a big victory, successfully annihilating nearly half of the ships and troops of the Roberts army, and only by luck let the opponent escape. Although he didn't complete all his achievements, Kuzan also severely damaged the Roberts army, which is a great achievement. It's no wonder Pelusolino Vice Admiral suddenly became motivated, maybe he's also aiming for the position of Admiral. Cross murmured to himself a little amusingly. There are rumors in the current Marine that Marshal Sora intends to step down as Marshal and let Sengoku, who is the only one in office, become the new Marshal. Then, once Sengoku Admiral becomes Marshal Sengoku, all the positions of Admiral will be vacant, and among the new generals in Marine, only 3 Logia monsters are most qualified to be promoted to the position of Admiral. If Cross guessed correctly, Kuzan's move was planned by the Doves, in order to push Kuzan to the position of Admiral. Therefore, even if Bo 0.7 Russolino is a little tired, as the leader of the neutral faction, he can't stay out of it, and must win an Admiral position for the neutral faction. What's more, Kuzan Vice Admiral is also Pelusolino Vice Admirals Junior and Junior. If the other party takes the lead, even Pelusolino Vice Admiral, who doesn't care much about face, will feel a little bit uncomfortable. Yes. This action is probably the first step for the neutral faction to fight for the position of Admiral for Pelusolino. Otherwise, the G2 branch wouldn't go to war in such a big way, and directly assembled more than a dozen warships and nearly 10,000 sailors, preparing to wipe out all the pirates on the island with a thunderous force. For example, the location of Cross is just one direction for the G2 branch to attack Guli Island, and Kadalu Rear Admiral is just a vanguard, and more troops will land in the future. Advertisement Chapter 57 Solve Open Black Lens Bracket Mountain Ghost Close Black Lens Bracket Jimoto. Advertisement. Bang. Suddenly, a roofless house not far away collapsed in response to the sound, and the aroused airwaves stirred up dust like a strong wind, spreading in all directions. In the dust that filled the sky, Jimoto appeared like a monster, running fast on the ground with 4 legs, his huge body even set off a strong wind, rushing towards him like a monster. Little ghost, your head must be very resilient when pinched. Ghost hand. The huge beast-like roar was shocking, and a big black hand stretched out from the thick smoke and dust like seeing the sun through the clouds, whipping up a biting wind and grabbing directly at Cross's head. Ha! I'm sorry, I have a hard head. Cross laughed lightly, but the movements of his hands were not slow at all. The jingsho he was holding suddenly turned into a cold light, piercing through that big black hand like an arrow from the string. Ah! Jimoto's face was distorted, and he couldn't help screaming in pain. His right hand stopped in the air, and the bright red blood flowed down the black blade and the bright blade. Cross plucked his ear with the little finger of his left hand, and teased with a smile, the barking sound is really good enough. Hole. Gurmoto let out an angry roar, brazenly raised his thick left arm, and slapped Cross viciously, the powerful power contained in it even set off the sound of howling wind. Suddenly, Cross stepped forward and kicked Jimoto in the abdomen. There was a dull sound of bang, and the strong wind visible to the naked eye spread. Before Jimoto could react, he flew more than 10 meters away. Wow! At this moment, Jimoto was lying in the middle of the street, a big mouthful of blood sprayed on the ground, only felt a sharp pain in his abdomen, and his intestines seemed to be broken. Hey! Open black lens bracket evil ghost close black lens bracket Jimoto, in the name of justice, you are under arrest. Cross looked relaxed, walked forward step by step, and said in his mouth, you have the right to remain silent now, but every word you say will become evidence in court. Shut up B****************. D. Jimoto gritted his teeth and let out a low growl, I'm going to kill you. After speaking, he propped his hands on the ground and stood up forcefully, without even wiping the blood from the corners of his mouth, he strode towards Cross again with big strides. Shave. Advertisement. Cross grinned indifferently, his feet hit the ground more than 20 times in an instant, and his whole body disappeared from Gurmoto's eyes at a super fast speed like teleportation. Where are people? Jimoto stopped suddenly, looked around in astonishment, and searched everywhere, but behind what he couldn't see, the figure of Cross appeared out of thin air like a ghost. Cross stood behind Jimoto, slowly raised his right leg, and then swept across Jimoto's waist like a steel whip, so fast that he turned into a phantom. Rumbling. Before Jimoto could react, his whole body felt as if he had been hit hard, his body was almost folded in half, and he flew out in a whirl on the spot, smashing through 3 houses in a row almost in an instant, setting off earth-colored smoke and dust that soared into the sky. Surging waves. I'm sure I won't be able to get up this time. Cross curled his lips and muttered something to himself. Bolu bolu bolu. Suddenly, a call of a phone bug came from Cross's pocket. Cross froze for a moment, then took out a phone bug with yellow and white stripes from his pocket, and saw the phone bug pouting and barking non-stop. Click. Cross picked up the microphone on the back of the phone bug and said, I'm Cross. Hey, I'm Pelusolino, is the attack going well? Kadalu's rear admiral's phone can't get through, but I see that you have already entered the interior of Westport. The phone bug pouted, vividly imitating the tone and expression of Pelusolino who was far away on the warship. The attack went very smoothly, and we just finished off Mountain Ghost Jimoto with a bounty of 94 million Baileys. Cross glanced at the ruins where Kadalu's rear admiral was, and said truthfully, it's just that Kadalu's rear admiral is not very well, it seems that he has suffered serious injuries. It's terrible, those fellows on the island. Pelusolino said, it's scary, every day, and then continued, in this case, Cross, I will temporarily hand over the soldiers who landed to you to command, and he will take over after Gumir rear admiral lands. Huh, is this appropriate? Cross frowned, and said hesitantly, poor Solino vice admiral, I'm just a recruit without a military rank. In terms of strength, there is no one more suitable than you, not to mention that teacher Zephyr also praised you, saying that you are a monster. Pelusolino said slowly. I'm under a lot of pressure to be praised so much by you. Well, then I hope that rear admiral will come soon. Cross shrugged and had no choice but to agree. Leaving it to you, I am very relieved. Click. Advertisement. After speaking, Pelusolino hung up the phone. At this time, Cross looked at the phone bug in his hand, and suddenly understood the reason why Pelusolino invited them to Guli Island to participate in this operation. In fact, relying on the strength of the G2 branch, plus Pelusolino himself as the commander, it is more than enough to deal with a gathering place of pirates in the first half of the Grand Line. Their participation will also benefit the G2 branch and the neutral faction. However, the students of the Marine School represent the future of Marine, and Pelusolino's invitation is to show his favor to them, and it implies a certain kind of solicitation. Tisk tisk, no one is a fool. Cross shook his head and smacked his mouth, and put the phone number back into his pocket calmly. But just when Cross was about to leave, the ruins of a house in the distance suddenly exploded with a boom, and debris such as broken bricks, stones, and wood were thrown out all over the sky, and a burst of thick smoke and dust was stirred up. Marine kid, don't think I lost. He ouch ouch. Gemido in the ghost baboon form roared almost madly, and the huge sound wave rolled in like a shock wave, causing the ground and the house to tremble slightly. There was actually a rumbling sound during the run, which was even louder than the sound of 100 animals running. It can still move. Cross showed surprise on his face, and said to himself with some displeasure, shout, I underestimated the physique of Zone's abilities. Forget it, let's get rid of you in one go. After finishing speaking, with a cold expression, he slowly put the scabbard of Jing Shu in his hand. Aye Moro Zan. The long knife suddenly came out of its sheath, and the high-speed friction between the blade and the scabbard made a loud, kang clang, sound, as if a dazzling lightning suddenly appeared out of thin air, full of sharpness that made people feel skin pain. Phew. In an instant, Cross and Gemido crossed each other like lightning, and accompanied by the soft sound of tearing into flesh, a handful of scalding bright red blood was thrown into the air. Gemido lowered his head in disbelief, and saw a long and narrow, hideous wound on his chest from the right shoulder to the left abdomen, with bones visible deep, and a large stream of blood gushing out like a fountain, making his body crumbling. Shaking non-stop. Really, wouldn't it be good to lie down obediently? Cross whispered, holding Jing Shu's right wrist and turning it, shaking off the blood on the knife. Bang rumble. In the next second, the ground in front of him split open suddenly, forming an astonishing crack hundreds of meters long, almost bottomless. Advertisement Chapter 58 Breaking Through the Pirate Town. Advertisement. There are 7 main routes in the first half of the Grand Line, each with a certain number of islands, but the final point is Sabayati Archipelago. However, there are also many islands that are not included in the 7 main routes, and Guli Island is one of them. This is a long island, more than 20 kilometers long from north to south, but only 5 or 6 kilometers wide from east to west. The first person to land on this island was a pirate called Guli. For convenience, he led his men to establish a foothold in the narrowest place in the middle of the island. Later, it gradually expanded into a town, with bays on the east and west sides. Ports and wharfs have also been built, so that passing pirate ships and black market merchant ships can dock easily without detours. According to the information from the Marine Intelligence Division, there are about a dozen pirate groups currently entrenched on Guli Island, plus some idle pirates who lost their captains or pirate ships, and some black market merchants. There are about 4,000 people. However, due to the small area of Guli Island, the island does not have enough strategic depth, so that the main guns of Marine's warship can completely cover the entire island. You must know that this time, Pelusalino dispatched more than half of the military force of the G2 branch, including 1 first-class warship, 4 second-class warships and 9 third-class warships, a total of 14 warships, and nearly 10,000 Marine soldiers. Divide into east and west routes to attack Gili Island. Because of the good intelligence work in the early stage, Pelusalino led the fleet of the G2 branch to set off at night, and arrived at Guli Island in the early morning. Facing the dozen or so pirate ships parked in the port, they were frantic. The bombardment quickly turned the entire port terminal into a sea of flames. The pirates in the town were woken up from the hangover by the thunderous cannons. They didn't even have time to put on their clothes. They ran to the street with their own weapons, and then saw the pirates in the port. The ship was hit by shells falling like raindrops, a huge explosion and hot flames rose up, and the surging air waves set off countless firewood, nails, canvas and other sundries. In the end, all the pirates looked dull, watching their own pirate ship submerged in the turbulent sea of fire, slowly sinking into the sea. With the destruction of the port, the fleet of the G2 branch was not satisfied, and extended its artillery fire to the towns on the island, carrying out cover bombardment unscrupulously, with a style of Buster Call. Of course, this is because the town on Guli Island is completely a pirate town, full of pirates and illegal black market merchants. That's why Pelusalino ordered the bombardment of the town, not caring about any no fratricide. As a result, the unsuspecting pirates were blown up by the gunfire of more than a dozen warships, causing heavy casualties, and even the town was severely damaged. But Cross understands that people in this world have extremely high physical fitness, and it is not so easy to die. In addition, among the dozen or so pirate groups, there are always some good guys, even guys who can withstand shells. No, it can be said that it won't be too long before those pirates will react. Advertisement. Since Cross was authorized by Pelusalino to command more than 300 Marine soldiers, his first order was to get the Marine soldiers in the town to gather on the main street and not to disperse their actions. At this time, Mountain Ghost Gemido, who was severely injured by Cross, was also tied up with seastone chains by the sailors, and sent to Cross. It's just that Kadalu Rear Admiral, whose eyes were white and fainted, was also sent along with him, which was dug out by the sailors from the ruins of the house. Seeing this, Cross simply ordered that some soldiers be sent out to build fortifications here, and set up a temporary camp for the wounded and captured pirates. Follow me. Gaspard looked a little unhappy, but he still didn't dare to disobey his orders on the battlefield, so he had to respond in unison with Shuzo, Mastason, Berrygood and others. In fact, Gaspard has always been dissatisfied with Cross. Even if he can't beat Cross, he just refuses to accept it. Cross doesn't care either, as long as Gaspard is obedient. Otherwise, he doesn't mind trying to make an example of others, and live well to deal with this green jellybean monster. Afterwards, Cross saw that the first wave of Marine soldiers who landed on Guli Island were almost gathered, so he separated 50 sailors to stay in the temporary camp, and then personally led the rest of the Marine soldiers to assault the interior of the town along the main street. Although Cross is not an expert in the art of war, he has read some ancient, modern military books in his previous life, and now he has studied command science in the Marine School for a period of time, so he knows that soldiers are valuable and fast reason. Just in time, taking advantage of the fierce bombardment of the G2 fleet to blow up the pirates on the island, Cross didn't hesitate, and was going to try to break into the town before the pirates reacted, joined the Marine in the East Port, and the whole gully is cut in half. Because there are more than a dozen pirate groups on Guli Island, and there are always some good guys in them. If these people gather together, it will definitely bring a lot of casualties to Marine. So Cross intends to merge with the Marine in the East Port, join forces to divide and encircle the pirates in the town, disperse the pirates on the island, and finally wait for the main force of the G2 branch to land. Eat it all in one piece. All in all, it is to penetrate and encircle, and then annihilate them one by one. Advertisement. Quote. Exclamation mark. Quote. Activation inorganic reincarnation. One-shot splitting void. Quote. Quote. Cross holds the famous knife, Jingsho, like a monster, rampages through the towns on Guli Island with overwhelming strength, chops down anyone who refuses to accept it, and chops down anyone who blocks the way. It was like a cake, cut to pieces by the terrifying slash he released with a wave of his hand. This guy is a monster. Seeing such a scene, Gaspard on the side couldn't help but turn pale with fright, and sweated profusely. You know, the normal piercing tactic is to concentrate troops to penetrate from the gaps or weak spots in the enemy's deployment, but Cross is different. He relies on his own strong strength, and with the help of activated biological cover in the sky, he directly leads the near, that's right, 300 Marine soldiers rushed all the way, as if they were in no man's land, they punched in from the front. Monster. Monster. Run. Get out. It's going to die. It's really going to die. Damn it, is this guy still human? In this way, Cross almost penetrated the entire pirate town with nearly 300 Marine soldiers. The surviving pirates all fled in fright, because those who were not afraid were hacked to death on the spot. In the first half of the Grand Line, those pirates with a bounty of tens of millions can only barely belong to the level of elite monsters for Cross, and they can't cause him any trouble or damage. For example, Mountain Ghost Gemado, the pirate with a bounty of 94 million Baileys, and Naval Headquarters Kadalu Rear Admiral are no opponents, but they can't hold a few knives in Cross's hands. It can be seen how powerful he is. Advertisement. Chapter 59. Lonely Red. Advertisement. This corpse is the bounty of 36 million Bailey, Vicious Dog Billy. The bounty is 43.5 million Baileys, Poisonous Scorpion Marina. This woman is still angry. I found it, and I offer a reward of 58 million Baileys, Iron Hand Holden. As Crow rushed forward, one pirate after another with a bounty of tens of millions was beheaded on the spot, or seriously injured, and became Marines captive. For a moment, the morale of the sailors following Cross was high, and they wished they could go up and arrest some pirates who offered a reward of over 10 million. Fortunately, they are still rational, and they can do things they don't think monsters can do. Antelope Horn. On a street full of ruins, a muscular, 3-meter-tall, bald man dressed as a boxer rushed out of a house that was blown down by shells, and he was seen stepping on butterfly steps, quickly approaching Cross. When the distance between the two sides was less than 2 meters, he suddenly bent his knees and lowered his center of gravity, and instantly burst into a jump and punched a claw-style flat uppercut. Iron Body. Cross's expression remained unchanged, and a gleam of light that was hard to see with the naked eye flashed across his body. Bang! In the next second, the bald man's fist hit Cross, head heavily, accompanied by a dull sound. A strong wind kicked up a burst of smoke and dust that spread outwards, and the ground under their feet immediately cracked, forming a spider web of cracks. 800. Cross tilted his head, squinted at the man on the opposite side, and said softly, "Boxing maniac Flo Willis, who has a bounty of 62 million Baileys, is this enough punch?" Nani. Flo Willis looked horrified, looking at his fist in disbelief. He knew that his fist could even kill sea beasts in the sea with one punch, and he didn't even hurt the opponent's fur. Are these guys monsters? The next second, Cross looked at the man in front of him sarcastically, and the Jingsho knife in his hand turned into a cold light, like a white lightning flashed in the air, and the knife penetrated the opponent's body, killing the boxer. Hand pirates nailed to the ground. Puff. Advertisement. Willis lay on the ground with a terrified expression. The severe pain in his chest made him unable to hold back a mouthful of blood. Afterwards, Cross pulled out Jingsho from Willis with the same expression, turned his wrist around, and threw the bloodline off the knife. As expected of Mr. Cross, you are amazing. Beeb. Even the man who offered a bounty of 62 million Baileys is vulnerable, he is as powerful as a monster. Just being a rookie is so powerful, I will definitely become a man like Pelusolino Vice Admiral in the future. Dash. The surrounding sailors rushed up and grabbed the seriously injured, boxing maniac, Flo Willis, and then repeatedly exclaimed in admiration. Cross waved his hands and said apart from each other, "Okay, if you are complimenting me, don't." Suddenly, a terrifying power erupted, turning Cross's eyes into a bright red phantom space, and a violent gust of wind swept across the sky and the ground out of thin air, making the air tremble. Plop, plop, plop. The next moment, the surrounding sailors fell to the ground unconsciously as if they had been severely injured, their eyes turned white, like a strong wind sweeping through a wheat field. Gaspard, Mastason and the others also felt as if their brains had been hit by a heavy hammer. They were sweating profusely, panting heavily, staggered half kneeling on the ground, and almost passed out. What is this? Gaspard shook his head, trying hard to wake himself up. Are you kidding? This level of conquerors, why did it appear in the first half of the Grand Line? The expression on Cross's face became gloomy, his eyes staring in the direction of Erdong Port. After his face changed a few times, he quickly ran towards the defense line of the East Port, ignoring even the fainted sailors. With the Conqueror's hockey at that level just now, there are not many people who can still stand in the entire pirate town, so there is no need for Cross to worry about their safety. Soon, Cross ran to the shore of the East Port, and all he could see were burning building ruins, large and small bomb craters scattered all over the street. Hundreds of thousands of pirates and marine soldiers rolled their eyes, all passed out on the ground. Then Cross saw Staloberry Rear Admiral half kneeling in the middle of the street in front of him, with a pale face leaning on a samurai sword in one hand, large drops of sweat slipping from his forehead to his chin and dripping onto the ground. Advertisement. Who? As if hearing the sound, Staloberry raised his head with difficulty, just in time to see Cross coming. He couldn't help shouting in horror. Quick! Run away! Leave this island! 1. Compared to the appearance of Lord Redfield, this kind of thing is not important. You also have the qualifications of a king. Immediately, Cross's face was gloomy, and he said word by word, the legendary Lonely Red, Beloric Redfield. But why did such a man appear in the first half of the Grand Line? Why did he appear in the small Guli Island? The moment he saw the other party, Cross's expression changed drastically, the pupils in his eyes suddenly shrank to the size of a needle point, and he swallowed his saliva in a gulu. Cross showed a wry smile, and said involuntarily. Because he felt that he seemed to be being targeted by some kind of terrifying monster, as if he would be attacked by a violent storm if he moved a little. Redfield said with some surprise, Are you questioning me? What? Redfield made it clear that Cross also has Conqueror's hockey. Beloric Redfield is an existence that is so powerful that he can keep pace with One Piece Luo Jia, Whitebeard Edward Newgate and others. I didn't expect to be lucky enough to have such a big man like you on the small Guli Island. Cross narrowed his eyes, clenched the Jingsho in his hand, and asked in a deep voice, Your Excellency Redfield, are you trying to stop our marine's actions? That's right, the man in his eyes is the legendary great pirate who was famous before the era of great pirates, a man with titles such as Lonely Red, Red Earl and Lonely Rider. Looks like it's too late, Staloberry Rear Admiral. Hee, I didn't expect there to be a brat like you in marine, and it's really rare to be able to stay awake under my hockey. Redfield showed a somewhat interested expression on his face, and looked at it curiously. Cross. Just look at his white hair braided into 2 braids hanging on his shoulders, wearing a plum red shirt and blood red trousers, wearing black leather shoes with gold rims on his feet, and wearing a large blood red cloak with a plaid pattern inside, with a blue rose around his neck and a slender umbrella with a bat handle in his hand, revealing an aristocratic and noble temperament. Cross turned his eyes and noticed that in front of Staloberry Rear Admiral stood a tall, thin, white-haired man with crimson eyebrows and a gold chain hanging from the corner of his mouth, showing a wicked smile. Advertisement Chapter 61st Site. World's Peak Combat Power Part 1. Advertisement. It's just a pirate, don't be too arrogant. Cross looked solemn, raised Jingsho in his hand, pointed at the other party with the tip of the knife, and said in a deep voice, On behalf of Marine, I ask you in the name of justice, pirate, Beloric Redfield, are you declaring war on Marine? Cross knows that he is not the opponent's opponent, but he is not afraid, because he has a backer. What's more, he represents the righteous army, how can he bow his head to the evil pirates? The brat is really young and energetic now. The corners of Redfield's mouth rose, and he chuckled evilly. I can't help it. Is it still called a young man if you are not arrogant? Interesting little brat, let's see if you have the confidence to do so. As soon as the words fell, Cross only saw Redfield take a step forward, and appeared in front of him in an instant like a ghost, and the bat-handled umbrella in his hand stabbed straight at him like a sword. Lone Red. In an instant, blood burst out, turning into surging sword energy and bursting out. Bang rumble. Before Cross could react, his body was flooded by the dazzling blood, and his whole body was sent flying. He spanned a distance of hundreds of meters almost instantly, and slammed into a small 3-story building. In the midst of the attack, and with the energy left unabated, he crashed through more than a dozen houses in a row before barely stopping. At this moment, surging air waves swept in all directions, setting off smoke and dust that soared into the sky, and a semicircular gully several hundred meters long appeared in the town, as if a big one was written on the ground. Cough cough. Cough cough cough. Cross lay in the ruins of the building piled up with bricks and wood with a painful expression, coughing violently. Blood had already stained the white shirt on his chest red. He didn't expect that with just one move, he would be sent flying with no room to fight back. Could this be the power possessed by the world's top-level monsters? If he hadn't used 6 Styles Iron Body and Armament Hockey to defend in time, he might be pierced by the opponent's umbrella. Boom. Afterwards, Cross shook off the bricks and stones on his body, flew straight into the sky, walked in the air with open black lens bracket 6 forms moonwalk close black lens bracket, and ran towards the east port like a gust of wind. On a warship on the sea, Pelusolino and Zephyr stood on the bow deck, looking far ahead at Gili Island. It's really strange, why is no one answering the phone? Advertisement. Looking at the phone bug in his palm, Pelusolino scratched the back of his head in doubt. Lost contact. Zephyr looked solemn, and said slowly, "It seems that there is something wrong with the Conqueror's hockey that broke out just now." Pelusalino was a little surprised, and asked strangely, "Mr. Zephyr, why not Conquerors from Little Cross?" HMPH, his courage hasn't reached that level yet. Zephyr snorted slightly, and then murmured to himself, "Besides, the Conquerors just now gave me a very familiar feeling. Could it be some old acquaintance I know? But the guys I know are basically in New World. Are they died, or were caught near the deep sea prison? Who would it be?" Zephyr frowned, kept guessing in his heart, and finally couldn't help cursing. "Damn, I can't remember. It's terrible." Pelusalino looked at Zephyr's tangled expression, curled his lips and muttered, then handed the phone bug in his hand to the subordinate behind him, and ordered in a deep voice, "The whole ship stops firing, approach the east and west ports." While speaking, Pelusalino walked up to the triple gun turret, jumped directly onto a thick gun barrel in the middle, and walked steadily to the muzzle to stop. Fire up, send me to the island." The Marine general stared wide-eyed, and couldn't help roaring loudly, "This method is too exaggerated, Mr. Pelusalino." Ghoulie Island. Stallo Berry spat out a mouthful of blood with a painful expression on his face, and fell heavily on the ground in the middle of the street. Half of the blade spun several times in the air, and fell to the ground with a clanging sound. "It's useless, you're just courting death." With a disdainful tone, Redfield slowly put down the bat in his hand and put down the umbrella, leaning on the umbrella with both hands. It's just that Stallo Berry has passed out and can no longer talk to Redfield. Suddenly, Redfield looked up with surprise on his face, and said to himself, "You can still move. It seems that Marine got a good kid. Asking for flowers. Advertisement." In the next second, Cross fell from the sky like a magic soldier, holding the handle of the knife with both hands, and swung Jingsho vigorously towards Ladefield. Scandium. When the famous knife collided with the umbrella, there was a clang of sword collision. During the collision of powerful forces, red and black lightning burst out, making the air turbulent, forming a violent howling wind and blowing outwards, blowing the Stallo Berry on the ground into the distance. "You still want to save people, are you afraid that I will kill him?" Redfield smiled evilly, holding the umbrella with one hand to resist Cross's slash. "I just don't want him to get in the way of our battle," Cross said coldly. "Fighting. Point 0. Redfield raised his brows and said with some amusement, "Are you talking about your fight with me? Isn't it a bit too arrogant, Marine brat? Don't think that if you have the qualifications of a king, you are qualified to stand in front of me." As soon as he finished speaking, Redfield turned his wrist, removed the Jingsho knife from the umbrella in his hand, and stabbed at Cross like an umbrella. "Don't underestimate me." Cross let out a low cry, withdrew his hand decisively, and put the Jingsho knife in front of him. Scandium. In an instant, I saw the umbrella in Redfield's hand piercing the blade of Jingsho, but there was a loud noise like a bell, which shook the air and made a circle of ripples visible to the naked eye. Then, a violent air wave erupted centered on the two of them, and accompanied by a huge, rumbling sound, the bricks and stones on the ground were violently lifted, exposing the bare lowest ground, and there were red and black lightning bolts on the ground. "Wander freely in the air. It's not bad, but it has some strength." Redfield showed a surprised expression, and then nodded appreciatively. But after all, the movements in Redfield's hands were still not slow. The slender bat turned the umbrella into a phantom all over the sky, wrapped in a strong wind, and enveloped Cross in an instant. Hateful. Cross couldn't help opening his eyes wide, staring at the sword shadows all over the sky, trying hard to see through the trajectory of each opponent's sword, and the Jingsho in his hand also waved, splash a piece of sword light pill in front of him. Advertisement Chapter 61 First Sight. World's Peak Combat Power Part 2. Advertisement. Scandium 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 Scandium. Scandium 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 Scandium. The famous knife and the umbrella collided with each other at super high speed, sparks burst out in the air, and the dense clanging sounded endlessly, bursting out with strong energy. But within a few seconds, Redfield looked relaxed, but the umbrella in his hand danced faster and faster, and Cross soon became overwhelmed. Suddenly, Cross slowed down by a step, and the Jingsho in his hand crossed with the umbrella, rubbing a series of sparks, which made him take an extra step forward involuntarily, causing his body to be in an unbalanced state. T7. In an instant, Cross' face changed suddenly, and he saw an umbrella with a bat handle piercing his chest like an arrow that pierced the air like lightning. It was too late, and then it was too fast. Cross turned his waist almost at the same time, and watched helplessly that the tip of the umbrella was like a sharp blade. 997. Tearing his clothes, scratching his skin, cutting open muscles, blood vessels, and nerve fibers tore out a terrifying wound with deep bone visible on his chest. Rumble. In the next second, all of Redfield's power poured out, turning the air into an invisible sharp slash that erupted, splitting the ruins of the house behind Cross like a hot knife cutting butter, leaving a trail of hundreds of people on the ground. Meter-long deep crack. "If you get hit head-on, you will die." Cross half-kneeled on the ground, facial muscles twitched, lowered his head with a lingering fear expression, and looked at the middle of his chest, where a bone-deep wound extended to his right shoulder, bleeding profusely, and quickly stained the white sailor shirt red. At that moment just now, Cross turned his body sideways like a ghost, and used the method of 6 styles paper arts to release all the strength of his whole body, committing himself to the changes in the airflow produced by the opponent's movements. Dangerously avoided the frontal attack. Otherwise, just relying on Redfield's stab to directly hit him, he would definitely not die or be seriously injured. Therefore, compared with death and serious injury, the wound on Cross's chest is the luckiest of luck. Interesting, you actually avoided it. Redfield looked at Cross with more interest, and looked a little more squarely in his eyes. Tear. Cross said nothing with a cold face, but just tore off his shirt, revealing his muscular upper body. I saw the muscles on both sides of the wound on his chest wriggling, trying to close the wound and stop the bleeding. Boom, boom, boom. Advertisement. Suddenly, 3 explosions occurred in succession on the pier, scorching flames rose up, a biting gust of wind was set off, and countless gravels were also splashed. At the same time, the dazzling light was dazzling, and countless light spots gathered around Cross, quickly forming a human shape. What a mess, little Cross. Pelusolino spoke slowly as usual, as if teasing. It's too incompetent for you to come here until now, Cross said in an unhappy tone with a gloomy face. I'm so sorry. Pelusolino scratched the back of his head in embarrassment, then looked at the man opposite, and said in a more serious tone, no one would have thought that such a big man would appear on the small ghouly island. It's really scary. Then, what is your purpose here? Lonely Red, Valoric Redfield. Mr. I didn't expect that, just passing by, I would be shelled by the Marine. It's a bit of a headache. Redfield said helplessly. Yeah, that's really a coincidence. Pelusolino unhurriedly lit a cigarette for himself, took a deep breath and exhaled the smoke. So, is Marine planning to fight me here? Redfield spread his hands and looked at Pelusolino with more interest. Facing a big man like you, even naval headquarters should be cautious. It's just that you injured my subordinates. If you don't do something, I, the base commander, will lose face in front of my subordinates. Bo said. Russolino pursed his lips, clasped his hands together, and a dazzling golden light bloomed between his palms. Amazon Cloud Sword. Pelusolino pulled his hands out, and he held a sword of light made of flashes of light, and he slashed at the man in front of him without hesitation. Scandium. When the lightsaber and umbrella collided, there was a sound of metal collision. With the two of them as the center, a fierce wind visible to the naked eye erupted, sweeping in all directions like a shock wave, setting off a burst of thick smoke and dust, making the surrounding ground faintly tremble. I've heard that Naval Headquarters has 3 powerful Logia abilities. Vice Admiral, let me see the true strength of Marine's younger generation today. Ladefield smiled charmingly, slowly raised the umbrella in his hand, and said it's kind of happy to see the hunter's heart. I'm under a lot of pressure to fight against a big man like you. Pelusolino still said slowly. In the next second, the two retreated at the same time, and then rushed towards each other again, waving the weapons in their hands to attack each other. Advertisement. Scandium, 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 Scandium. For a moment, the two launched a fierce mutual attack, the sound of intensive sword clashes was heard endlessly, and the violent collision between the lightsaber and the umbrella even sparked sparks. Only the two figures were sometimes entangled and sometimes separated, the surging air waves swept outward like a gust of wind, and the overflowing sword energy left deep cracks in all directions on the ground. Scandium. Shake violently. Pelusolino showed an unhappy expression, and said to himself, it's really a trick. Cross looked cold, as if he knew that Ladefield's target was him. The blade of Jingsho, in his hand trembled slightly, made a pleasant knife groan, and slashed out without hesitation. This is. However, there was no joy on Pelusolino's face, because Redfield in front of him disappeared like a bubble. At this moment, the air was shaken, red and black lightning burst out, and the violent air wave was like a biting wind, sweeping away in all directions, making the whole town. Suddenly, the ground shook violently without warning, and the surrounding ground was lifted by an invisible force. Countless blue bricks and soil mixed together to form huge tentacles that looked like living creatures, and blatantly moved towards Ryder in the middle. Field smashed, and Pelusolino was within the attack range. The collision of the knife and the umbrella actually made a loud noise like a bell. Rumble. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Pelusolino came to the right of Ladefield, and the Amazono sword, in his hand was like a golden lightning bolt, piercing through the opponent's body in an instant. Don't blame us for fighting more and fighting less, who called you a pirate? Afterwards, Ladefield saw the severed half-mudstone tentacles fell to the ground, but they were still wriggling like octopus tentacles. Activation inorganic reincarnation. But at this moment, Redfield appeared in front of Cross like a ghost, and the blue bat umbrella in his hand stabbed straight like a sharp arrow, so fast that there was no sound of wind. Yin. Redfield looked around, showing surprise involuntarily, raised his hand and waved the umbrella in his hand. A ring-shaped bloody slash rapidly expanded, and suddenly cut everything around him in half. Afterimage. Advertisement Chapter 62 First Sight. World's Peak Combat Power Part 2. Advertisement. It's so scary, the Conqueror's collision. No matter how many times I've seen it, I still feel it's exaggerated. Feeling the strong vibration of the ground, Pelusolino let the strong wind blow the coat of justice on his body, with an expression of amazement on his face. However, Pelusolino didn't look on, and let a recruit deal with a legendary pirate, and saw his body turned into an invisible light spot and floated forward, quickly forming a beam of light to sweep away, as if a golden meteor flashed across the air. At the same time, Cross and Redfield failed to collide with one blow, and fought fiercely again. Scandium, 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 Scandium. The knife and the umbrella collided quickly, sparks splashed out in the air, and the sound of dense metal and iron collisions was heard endlessly, setting off layers of air waves. Little ghost, I thought you were a pure swordsman, but you are also a person with abilities. Your Excellency Redfield, you don't seem to be a pure swordsman either. Swordsmanship is just my means against the enemy. each other. Among the sword shadows and sparks all over the sky, there was also a conversation between the two. I saw that Cross's swordsmanship opened and closed, each knife was full of power, as if to cut off the air. 14 can be said to have fully exerted his own talent, as if to overwhelm the opponent with strength. However, as an opponent, Redfield is even more extraordinary. He holds an umbrella, covers it with armament hockey, and directly uses the umbrella as a sword. His moves are fast and ruthless. Not only can he absorb the power of Cross's every knife, but he can also easily counterattack. The moves pointed directly at Cross's vital points, coupled with his unique swift movement, he pulled out several blood shadows and attacked Cross violently. At one time, Cross had the illusion that he was besieged by several people at the same time. However, although Cross has outstanding talent, he is young after all. Facing Redfield's fast sword and body skills, plus his combat experience is not as rich as the opponent's, he soon fell into a disadvantage. Suddenly, Redfield made a feint, causing Cross to withdraw his sword to parry, but Redfield took advantage of this opportunity to twist his waist and quickly swung his sword backward. Almost at the same time, dazzling light bloomed, and countless light particles quickly gathered behind Ladefield to form. Pelusolino stabbed out with the shining sword of light, but was caught by Ladefield, who just turned around. Durfield swung his sword away. Scandium. Advertisement. The collision of the lightsaber and the umbrella splashed a few sparks in the air. As expected of the legendary, Lonely Red, it's really scary. Pelusolino pursed his lips, speaking in the same slow and funny tone, but the movements in his hands were not slow at all, and he made several swords one after another, splitting, or cutting, continuously and quickly attacked Redfield. Redfield didn't speak, but still had an evil smile on his face. The blue umbrella held by the bat in his hand was like a famous sword, picking and blocking it, and it was easily blocked amidst the dense sound of Scandium, 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 all attacks by Pelusolino. It is also interesting to say that the three people present are all strong men who are good at swordsmanship, but none of them are pure swordsmen. Pelusolino and Cross are both demon fruit powers. The former is the ability of devil fruit combined with swordsmanship and physical skills. The latter uses swordsmanship as the main means of fighting against enemies, and physical skills as a supplement. Because the time to eat devil fruit is too short, the level of development is not high, and there are not many moves that can be combined with it. Although Redfield is not a demon fruit power, he is also a top-level physicist. Swordsmanship is only an auxiliary, and it cooperates with physical skills. Call, I've been fooled. At this moment, Cross let out a low curse in displeasure, and rushed forward without hesitation, joining the battle group of the two. But in the next second, Redfield actually abandoned Pelusolino in front of him, and like a ghost, he turned into a blood shadow invisible to the naked eye and circled behind Cross. Cross, complexion changed suddenly, he turned around subconsciously, and put open black lens bracket Jingshu close black lens bracket in front of him. Almost at the same time, the slender blue umbrella in Redfield's hand just happened to poke on the blade of Jingshu, accompanied by a loud bang of Scandium. The terrifying force pushed Cross out, both feet plowed out 2 long marks on the ground. Damn it, this old guy still has such great power. Cross was horrified, that Jingshu in his hand was trembling constantly, making his palm numb, and he almost couldn't hold the handle of the knife. Crimson flash. At the same time, Redfield smiled evilly and spit out 2 words from his mouth, and the umbrella in his hand also burst into dazzling blood. Not good. Cross's breathing was stagnant, and the pupils in his eyes suddenly constricted. Before he even had time to react, he was instantly overwhelmed by the dazzling blood. Advertisement. The terrifying blood-colored sword wave flashed through the air at an extremely fast speed, but traversed the entire pirate town with unparalleled strength, and dissipated after almost cutting Ghoulie Island in half. After the frantic hurricane-like airflow passed by, a bottomless canyon was left on the violently shaking ground, and the sound of mooring running water could even be heard coming from below. Suddenly, countless light particles converged into a human form beside Ladefield, and a cold voice came out. Your Excellency Ladefield, speed is weight, have you ever been kicked by light? Redfield turned his head and looked, and saw Pelusolino's face was cold, his raised right leg was photonized, and swept over like lightning. Apparently, Pelusolino was angry. Redfield's expression changed slightly, and he had no time to block with the umbrella held in his right hand, so he had to raise his left arm to block in front of him. Bang! Amidst the dull sound, the ring-shaped strong wind visible to the naked eye spread, kicking up the dust on the ground. Redfield flew away in response, his body even spinning uncontrollably in midair, completely losing the ability to balance himself under Pelusolino's attack. Fortunately, Ladefield is not just a swordsman, he is also a monster-level physicist who finally regained control of his body 10 moments before he fell to the ground. Boom! Redfield fell heavily on the ground, and the ground was almost sunken by his stepping on it, forming a huge spider web-like crack on the spot. Call out. Immediately afterwards, a golden laser beam traversed a distance of several hundred meters, fleeting like a shooting star. Redfield turned his head expressionlessly to avoid it, letting the extremely fast laser light pass by his ears and land on the buildings behind him. Bang! Immediately, a deafening huge explosion occurred, and the terrifying scorching flames formed a bowl-shaped energy cover upside down on the ground, and continued to expand outward, destroying everything within the range without restraint. The earth shook violently, and the howling wind swept across, making the blood-red cloak of Ladefield flutter and make a sound. Advertisement Chapter 63 First Sight. World's Peak Combat Power End. Advertisement. It hurts me. Cross opened his eyes in a daze, seeing the wooden ceiling and hanging oil lamps above his head. The pain from all over his body made him moan involuntarily. Wake up! Wake up! Cross woke up. It's the first time I've seen this guy suffer such a serious injury. Many people gathered around when they heard Cross's voice. Where am I? How long have I been unconscious? Cross looked at the familiar faces of Shuzo, Gaspard, Mastason and others, and asked softly. You were in a coma for about 6 hours on the Rear Admiral's warship. Shuzo replied. 6 hours. Cross tried to sit up, and saw that his body was covered with white bandages, and suddenly heard the dull sound of rumbling, and asked involuntarily, what happened after that? Is the battle not over yet? Teacher Zephyr and Pelusolino Vice Admiral are both on Guli Island, fighting with Beloric Redfield. I heard that Smoker was also rescued by Hina. Mastason said a lot of things that Cross didn't understand. Before the Battle of Guli Island, the students of the Marine School followed the G2 fleet and divided into 2 teams. Smoker, Hina, Uchimura, Charoncool and others were on the fleet towards the east port. Cross, Shuzo, Gaspard, Mastason and others are on the fleet towards the west port. In the first wave of landing on the beach, all 50 students of the elite class were dispatched, and they all followed the G2 branch sailors from the east and west and attacked the port of the town. I just heard from Hina that Smoker was the first person to meet Redfield, but he didn't recognize him, so he directly attacked Redfield, but was thrown out by Redfield with an umbrella, and passed out on the spot. Therefore, the existence of Redfield was discovered, which caused him to use Conqueror's Hockey to stun almost all the sailors and pirates on the island, interrupting the G2 branch's attack on Guli Island. Advertisement. However, when Cross and Stallo Berry Rear Admiral launched an attack on Ladefield, and when Pelusolino Vice Admiral arrived, Hina, Uchimura and other people who were still awake kept rescuing those injured and unconscious sailors. Until later, Rear Admiral led the second wave of sailors to land, found Cross unconscious on the pier, and quickly rescued him back to the warship. So, Mr. Zephyr and Pelusolino Vice Admiral have been fighting Redfield for 6 hours on Guli Island. Cross said softly. It seems that after you fell into a coma, Teacher Zephyr set foot on Guli Island, joined hands with Pelusolino Vice Admiral, and fought against the legendary big pirate, Lonely Red, Beloric Redfield. The winner has not yet been decided. Gaspar's tone was somewhat dignified. It's not that easy to tell the winner. Cross shook his head and said slowly. I have heard that Beloric Redfield is the old opponent of Marshal Kong, just like the one who has been chasing the pirate King Luogia. The same as Vice Admiral Garp, except Marshal Kong didn't catch Redfield until he was promoted to Marshal. True or false? Then, if the battle between Mr. Zephyr and Pelusolino Vice Admiral and Beloric Redfield continues, Marshal Sora may personally dispatch, come here from Marineford. Mastason said in surprise. This possibility is not impossible. Cross endured the pain in his body, and analyzed in a deep voice, it's just. Redfield is not an idiot. He should not die with Teacher Zephyr and Pelusolino Vice Admiral fight on, engage in a meaningless battle, tear the final result and it should end with Redfield voluntarily leaving the field. Is that Lonely Red really that powerful? Can't you even beat Mr. Zephyr and Pelusolino Vice Admiral? Gaspard asked with a surprised expression. The legendary big pirates are not easy to deal with. Cross shook his head. While everyone was talking, the battle on Guli Island was still going on. Zephyr and Pelusolino teamed up to besiege Beloric Redfield. The shocking battle between the three shook the entire island, and even the seawater churned, causing waves to bloom. In this way, the battle between the three lasted for a full 10 hours, and the entire town was almost torn down without a winner. In the end, Redfield was unwilling to continue the stalemate, so he took the initiative to jump into the sea and leave. Seeing that Redfield left, Zephyr and Pelusolino no longer had the desire to continue fighting, which brought this sudden battle to an end. And at this moment, far away in the naval headquarters fortress in Marineford, Kong walked out of the marshal's office with high spirits, followed by several marine generals, preparing to go to the port. Marshal Kong, the warship is ready, but, Jonathan asked hesitantly, are you sure you want to go out in person? Of course, I've been waiting for this day for decades. Sora said excitedly. Advertisement. Do you want to think about it again? Jonathan asked anxiously. I think it is enough to have Teacher Zephyr and Vice Admiral Bosarusolino, or to dispatch Vice Admiral Garp. You should stay and sit in charge. Stop talking nonsense, that fellow Ladefield, you must let me handle it. Kong glanced at Jonathan behind him, and said firmly. This. Hearing this, Jonathan felt dizzy for a while, but seeing Kong's determined expression, he really couldn't find any good excuses to persuade him. From Jonathan's point of view, Kong, as the Marshal of Marine, really didn't need to risk his life. If anything happened, it would be a trivial matter for Marine to lose face. When the time comes when there will be no leader, causing chaos within Marine, it will be a major event. Forget this and that, you stay and assist Xiaohei, and it's enough to stabilize naval headquarters. Sora waved his hand casually. However, if it is true that Cao Cao arrives, Zhao Qian Zhao Cao Cao will arrive. On the other side of the corridor, Naval Headquarters Chief Staff Officer Crane came towards him, followed by several female generals such as Guion. Hey, Xiaohei, Naval Headquarters will trouble you these days. Kong raised his hand to say hello, and said with a smile on his face. No need, Naval Headquarters is still up to you to control. Crane walked in front of Kong, and said in a flat tone, I just got the news that the battle on Guli Island is over, and Redfield jumped into the sea and left. Nani? Kong stared wide-eyed, and said in disbelief, are you kidding me, Xiaohei? I don't have time to joke with you. If you don't believe me, call Zephyr yourself. He said calmly. This be asterisk 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 D. With an angry expression on his face, Kong cursed almost like a growl. Old bat. Red pole, how can you run away? Damn, damn, damn. Paper. Advertisement Chapter 64 The Kingdom of Frevens perishes. Advertisement. Naval Headquarters open black lens bracket Marineford close black lens bracket. Cross was lying on the hospital bed, boredly looking at the scenery outside the window, when suddenly a burst of secondhand smoke wafted over, making him cough continuously. Don't you know that smoking is prohibited in the ward? Cross fanned the smoke in front of him with his hands, and angrily cursed at Smoker who was on the next bed. In the Battle of Guli Island, the Marines of the G2 branch had few casualties, but gained a lot. Even the pirates with a bounty of more than 30 million were captured or killed, and the rest were killed or injured. There were very few pirates who managed to escape from Guli Island. It was just that Cross and Smoker were unlucky. They were both injured by Redfield, so they were admitted to the hospital together. I told you to change the bed with you, who told you not to? Smoker bit his cigar, and glanced at Cross with disdain. With a dark face, Cross glared fiercely at Smoker, and cursed, Fart, why should I change places with you? Is it because you are full of smoke? If you don't let it go, I don't care anyway. Smoker curled his lips, took a deep puff of the cigar, and exhaled another puff of smoke. I saw the white smoke drifting towards the window along the flow of the air, choking and coughing on Cross beside the window. Cough cough. Cough 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 cough. UB asterisk 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 D. Cross was a little distraught, and immediately lifted the quilt from the 720 and was about to get up to teach Smoker a lesson. Okay, you two. Hina, who was sitting between the two, stood up helplessly, and while pressing Cross back on the bed, took down the cigar from Smoker's mouth. Hey, Hina, what are you doing? Smoking is not allowed in the ward, you are only allowed to take 2 puffs, don't go too far. Smoker looked at Hina unhappily, and Hina also glared back at Smoker, and directly extinguished the cigar in his hand into the ashtray on the bedside table. That's right, when you're eligible for a single room, you can smoke whatever you want. Cross sneered. Advertisement. What nonsense. Smoker said angrily, next time I will definitely not be admitted to the hospital again. Hearing this, Cross laughed and said, don't talk silly, Smoker, there is a saying, the earthen pot is not broken without the Inoue. The general will inevitably die in battle even if you can guarantee that you will not be killed by others. It won't take long go through the battlefield without getting hurt. You are not Charlotte Linlin, the steel balloon, can you still be inferior to a knife and a gun? Smoker noticed that there was something wrong with his words, but he was still a young man and he didn't want to show weakness, so he beat around the bush and said firmly, I only said that I won't go to the hospital in the future, but I didn't say that I won't be injured. In the Battle of Guli Island, he was seriously injured by Redfield with one move, and he was directly admitted to the hospital. He was so shameless that he didn't even have the confidence to say a few big words if he wanted to brag now. Especially during the time of studying in the elite class of Marine School, coupled with the fiasco of Guli Island, he has already understood that Logia's ability is not invincible. Whether it's a seastone weapon that counters demon fruit power, or an armament hockey that's strong enough to counter demon fruit power, Smoker has tried the power of both. Cross naturally heard that Smoker was being stubborn, and almost didn't laugh out loud on the spot, and the image of the future Smoker's 3-game losing streak in Punk Hazard emerged in his mind. Boom boom boom. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Everyone looked up and saw Shuzo standing at the door with a serious face, holding a newspaper in his hand. Hey, you guys come to see us, you don't buy anything, you just use a newspaper to fool me. Smoker vented his anger on Shuzo, and said angrily. Shuzo ignored Smoker's displeasure, walked straight into the ward, came to Cross without saying a word, and handed over the newspaper in his hand. What's wrong with you? Did something important happen? Cross looked at Shuzo strangely, raised his hand and took the newspaper. Shuzo pointed to the newspaper in Cross's hand, and said indifferently, the kingdom of Frevens is destroyed. Nani? BEDG. How is this possible? Advertisement. After a while, there was silence in the ward, and Hina and Smoker's faces were pale, almost crumbling. However, it was too late. Just a dozen days ago, Powell-Lead disease broke out on a large scale in the kingdom of Frevens, and people, whether adults or children, continued to get sick. Obviously, the world government has issued a statement, why is it still like this? Smoker muttered to himself with trembling lips. Let me see. As a result, countries around the kingdom of Frevens sent troops to block the borders one after another, preventing anyone from leaving the kingdom of Frevens. It turns out that ever since Cross and Zephyr exposed the danger of Piran and the true face of the Ariel royal family, the residents of the kingdom of Frevens fell into panic and began to frantically look for famous doctors to treat their Piran disease, or it is to give money to subsidize the doctors in the kingdom, and let them speed up their research on the solution to Poly-Lead disease or develop drugs to delay the outbreak of Poly-Lead disease. For a moment, Cross's breath was suffocated, and he suppressed the shock in his heart and continued to watch. Hina snatched the newspaper from Cross' hand and watched it with Smoker. Cross smiled miserably, and said softly, in the statement of the world government, it didn't say that Purbone disease is not an infectious disease. Although Cross already understood that the demise of the Frevens kingdom was inevitable, he never expected that history would go back to the original point, and the Frevens kingdom would perish in the same tragic way. The kingdom of Frevens, one of the richest countries in North Blue, has perished just like that. The result is obvious. The kingdom of Frevens, known as the White Town, still failed to escape the fate of extinction. The residents of the entire country were shot and killed by soldiers from other countries, and no one survived. Hee hee, what a sarcasm. Afterwards, Cross hurriedly lowered his head and flipped through the newspaper in his hand, only to see a conspicuous headline written in black and bold on the main page of the Shijing newspaper. The Great Outbreak of Peled Disease, White Township close black lens bracket death of Frevens, close double angle bracket. Originally, when the people of the Frevens kingdom went to the outside world to look for famous doctors, they said that pauper lead disease was a disease of heavy metal poisoning, but such a large-scale disease still frightened the people and nobles of the surrounding countries. Therefore, he did not believe the words of Frevens kingdom. However, the people of Frevens kingdom were unwilling to sit still, and there was no shortage of weapons and ammunition in the country, so wars broke out with several surrounding countries. In an instant, the expressions of Cross, Smoker and Hyena's master suddenly changed. Cross' face was miserable, and he hung down powerlessly. Advertisement Chapter 65 New Mission. Advertisement. Drawer. Bang 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 bang. In the indoor practice field of the Marine School, two figures intertwined at a super-fast speed, and the strikes were as fast as lightning, and the collision of fists and feet stirred up a surge of vigor visible to the naked eye, which made the whole arena vibrate. Even the strength of stepping forward can easily crack the bluestone slab under his feet. Is your physical skill only at this level? Finger pistol machine gun. Zephyr's expression was cold, and after dodging Cross's punch quickly, he stretched out his index fingers with both hands at the same time, and shot out countless finger pistol at super high speed, splashing out, after images all over the sky. Paper arts. Cross's expression changed slightly, and he let go of all his strength on the spot. Following the change in the airflow generated by Zephyr's attack, his body was constantly swaying with the wind like catkins in the wind, and he was always able to dodge at the nick of time. The confrontation between the two sides was just a pure physical confrontation, and no swordsmanship, devil fruit ability and hockey were used. After attacking continuously for a few seconds, Zephyr found that his attack could not reach Cross, so he immediately stopped the useless attack. At this moment, Cross resolutely fought back, raised his foot and swept towards Zephyr like a sharp knife. Tempest kick. A blue and white crescent moon flew out like a new moon. Bang. Zephyr leapt up violently, letting the tempest kick slash past his feet, and instantly slashed on the wall of the indoor practice field, leaving a deep crack several meters long, as if he had been slashed by a knife. Moonwalk. Finger pistol boxing gun. Immediately, Zephyr kicked his feet, and a white ring-shaped air wave spread out from the soles of his feet, causing him to fly out, falling from the sky like an arrow from the string, and using finger pistol to attack the Cross below. Punch out. Seeing Zephyr's fierce punch, Cross didn't dare to catch it hard, and quickly dodged aside. Bang. Advertisement. Immediately, Zephyr fell down like a shooting star and punched the ring. The powerful force shocked the entire ring, creating a surge of air and dozens of cracks spreading in all directions. Immediately afterwards, when Cross raised his hand to fan the smoke and dust in front of him, he saw Zephyr rushing forward and punching him head-on. Iron body. Cross couldn't dodge in time, so he had to cross his arms in front of his chest. A flash of light flashed all over his body, as if forming a cast-iron sculpture, watching Zephyr come forward and punch his arm. In an instant, amidst the dull loud noise, visible air waves spread in a circular shape, and Cross' body moved back several meters directly, leaving 2 marks on the ground with both feet. What a strong force. At this moment, Cross's expression was distorted, and he only felt that the bones in his arms were about to be split, as if they were broken, and he couldn't help but lowered his hands, opening his empty door. Successful. Immediately, Zephyr yelled loudly and landed a hard uppercut on Cross's jaw. Cross's brain fell into a blank, his head suddenly tilted up, saliva and blood spurted out, even his body was hit by the force of the punch, his feet flew into the air. In the next second, Zephyr didn't hold back either, and punched out vigorously. The casserole-sized fist hit Cross's body heavily. The punch was like a mountain toppling and collapsing, and all the powerful power poured out. Bang 1. The muffled sound echoed, and with the outward spread of the circular energy visible to the naked eye, Cross flew out like a cannonball, and instantly turned into a black shadow and hit the wall of the indoor practice field. Accompanied by a huge roar, the thick wall was directly smashed into a big hole with a diameter of more than 3 meters by Cross, surrounded by dense cracks. The whole person seemed to be. It's like being inlaid on the wall. Most of the body is not embedded in it. Hey, you really don't show mercy. At this time, a slightly lazy voice sounded. Zephyr frowned, turned his head to look at the source of the sound, and found Kuzan standing in the doorway. What are you doing here? It's just a day off to visit the students who are about to graduate. Advertisement. Kuzan put his hands in his pockets and walked into the indoor practice field with 3 steps. Zephyr didn't give the other side a good face, walked straight off the ring, and knocked Cross out of the wall. Asking for flowers. I won't be late. Cross waved his hand indifferently. Zephyr's face darkened, and seeing Cross' stiff mouth, he couldn't help but snorted coldly, and warned. Stop talking nonsense. If you dare to be late for tomorrow's graduation ceremony, you'll be the one to watch. I told you a long time ago, don't hesitate when you make a move, because you will lose if you hesitate. Zephyr reprimanded in a cold voice, and said in a deep voice, countless people die every day in this world, you have done everything you can power, that's it. Hearing this, Cross not only did not show joy, but looked at Kuzan suspiciously, and asked, "Why did you tell me this because you didn't come over? Why do you need to inform me about such a trivial matter?" Kuzan shook his head and said in a deep voice, "Recently, the pirates in New World are making a lot of noise, and the G5 branch led by Sakazuki suffered a lot of casualties in the battle with the pirates, so Naval Headquarters plans to add some elite combat forces to the G5 branch, so Marshal Sora considers that he wants to transport the activated creatures you left in Sculpture City, Skowski to Marineford, to serve as part of the garrison mission, so that more troops can be added to Sakazuki." Cross looked straight, and promised, "I can ensure that the activated creatures I created can serve as Marineford garrison tasks, and even the daily patrol tasks can allow them to perform for a long time." At this moment, Cross regained consciousness in a daze, and sat on the ground weakly, feeling the intense pain from his jaw, abdomen and other places, which made him wake up quickly. At this time, Kuzan looked at Cross and asked, "Of course it's not just this one thing. What nonsense, what about child labor exploitation?" Fa glared at Cross. "I'm only 16 years old this year, do you want to exploit child labor?" Cross also looked at Kuzan, carefully stroked his bruised chin, and asked, "Why, does Marshal Kong disagree?" Kuzan looked at Cross speechlessly, and said, "Marshal Kong has approved your request and agreed to let you stay as an assistant coach for 1 year, and then formally join the Marine establishment." "No problem at all, Teacher Zephyr, you are too harsh." Cross gripped his chin and complained in a muffled voice. "I don't know, can the activated creatures you made take on this important task? I was just distracted for a moment, thinking whether to go drink with Ms. Hina tonight, or go to the movies with Ms. Guillaume." Cross curled his lips and stood up from the ground with great effort. "By the way, are you sure you want to stay at Marine School as a teaching assistant?" Advertisement Chapter 66 Graduation. Advertisement. The next day, the Marine School was very lively, and red banners were pulled up to celebrate the graduation of the 16th elite class. In a large classroom in Building 12, not only Zephyr and a group of senior instructors were present, but also Kong Kong, who was Marshal Marine, was present in person to confer military ranks on the graduating students. During the half-year-long actual combat practice, the students of the elite class wiped out more than a dozen pirate groups, and the number of enemies killed and captured by each person is also counted as merit, so they have won a lot of credit. His own strength is far superior to that of ordinary sailors, so naturally he will not formally join the Marine after graduation, but he is just a big soldier. However, in the half-year battle, the 50 students in the elite class were not without casualties, 11 were killed, 5 were disabled, and they had already retired. Only 34 students were able to attend the graduation ceremony today, 4 of them there are still wounds on his body. Daddy Masterson, the rank of Sergeant. Uchimura, rank Ensign. 14. Hina, award the rank of Ensign. Gaspard, award Lieutenant Junior Grade. Smoker, award Lieutenant Junior Grade. On the rostrum, the air station awarded military ranks to the students of the elite class. It didn't take long, and finally came to the last person. Looking at Chris in front of him, he couldn't help but smile, and said slowly, "I said, when you graduate, your achievements will not be ignored." Amphitheater Cross, the rank of Major. Sora took a brand new coat of justice from the servant behind him and handed it to Cross. "Everything, for justice." Cross raised his hands in salute with a solemn expression, and then put on the coat of justice, with a majestic posture. Now is not the era of the future, and it is not easy to obtain the rank of Marine at this time, not to mention that it is already very good for a group of newly joined Marine recruits to obtain the ranks of Sergeant and Lieutenant. Advertisement. Among these 34 people, most of them were awarded the rank of Sergeant, a small number of them were awarded the rank of Ensign, only Gaspard and Smoker received the Lieutenant Junior Grade, and Cross was the only one who was awarded the rank of Lieutenant Junior Grade, the rank of Major. Seeing this scene, the elite class students present showed envious eyes. Smoker and Gaspard were quite satisfied with their Lieutenant Junior Grade at first, but when they saw Cross, the new Major, they immediately felt very upset and even showed jealousy. However, everyone present did not raise any objections, because this is the rank that Cross deserves. As early as when Carl Island encircled and suppressed the piercing pirates, Cross used his abilities to protect the Sculpture City, Skokie, not only protecting the people in the city, but also reducing the casualties of innocent people and Marines. It can be said to be a great achievement. In the escort mission half a year ago, one was to expose the poisonous lead, and the other was to repel the Silver Wrist Legion of the Roberts Legion with his own efforts. He made a record of sinking a steamship and killing hundreds of pirates. Perfectly cut off the spying of the Roberts Legion on King Vince Moke Judge, who participated in the Open Black Lens Bracket World Summit Close Black Lens Bracket. And on the Sabayati Archipelago, Cross, a midshipman, also protected the Celestial Dragons, which is also a great achievement. Finally, in the actual combat practice of combating pirates, Cross is still the person who has the most credit among all the people. Even the pirates with a bounty of more than 50 million have solved more than one person. Especially in the recent battle of Guli Island, whether Cross defeated several pirates with a bounty of over 100 million, or played against Redfield, the Marine executives were extremely satisfied. With so many achievements on Cross, being awarded the rank of Major is more than enough, but it is just to take care of the feelings of other students and the issue of qualifications. Otherwise, it is more than the rank of Major. After Cross conferred the military rank, the conferring ceremony came to an end. Everyone lined up in a neat queue and returned to their seats in an orderly manner. Everyone here is the future star of Marine. I hope you will abide by justice, never forget your original aspirations, keep in mind the mission of justice, and resolutely eliminate evil. At this time, Kong Kong stood on the rostrum, and gave a speech to Cross and others who returned to the audience with high spirits, just like those leaders in the previous life. It's like brainwashing. Cross didn't know what happened to the others, anyway he was drowsy. In this way, a whole morning passed, and the conferring ceremony finally ended with an empty speech. Understood, I'll go back to the dormitory to pack up and then set off. Cross replied in a deep voice. Advertisement. After a while, only Cross, Sora, and Jonathan, the adjutant, were left in the large classroom. It's like this. I asked you before whether your activated creatures can serve as the defense force of naval headquarters. You said yes, so I sent a few warships and a group of transport ships to the sculpture city, Skokie. I want to bring those activated sculptures back. Kong said helplessly. But this matter, the officials of Sculpture City, Skokie disagreed with life and death, and even the local people spontaneously stopped our marine at the port. Action. However, Cross's request to stay at the Marine School as a teaching assistant for 1 year has been approved by Marine's top management, so tomorrow only 33 people including Smoker and Gaspard will be assigned to other Marine strongholds, excluding Cross. Cross answered like this, making the space in front of him even more satisfied. During the practical internship, this year's grade 5 students have been assigned to various Marine branches and divisions, and the next step is the assignment of 34 elite class students. What? The sooner the better. Naval headquarters has already started dispatching troops, and some of them will leave in the afternoon. Kong nodded. Then it's hard work for you to make a trip. Sora smiled and patted Cross on the shoulder. For justice. Just as the 34 elite class students stood up and were about to line up to leave, Kong suddenly spoke and asked Cross to stay. Although Cross was a little strange, he still went out honestly and watched the others. Cross felt a little strange, but still complied, and asked, Then, shall I leave now? Cross looked confused, and asked in confusion, Why? Why didn't they agree? Cross, you stay here. The specific reason, you will know when you go to Sculpture City, Skokie, and the Flying Squirrel Rear Admiral will explain it to you. Kong shook his head with a wry smile, and did not explain too much. Major Cross, I need your help to deal with something. Kong looked at 110 Cross, with a smile on his face, and said slowly. Your Excellency Marshal, please order. Cross said in a deep voice. Advertisement Chapter 67 Resistance. Advertisement. The first half of the Grand Line open black lens bracket City of Sculpture close black lens bracket Skokie. It's still the same sentence. I object. Yes, we object. Flying Squirrel Rear Admiral, you are going too far. They are the property of the people of Skokie. You can't take them away. In the conference room of the city government hall, a group of people were arguing loudly around the mahogany round table, spittle flying around, and the few people who were most emotional were completely blushing and thick-necked. The Marine officers sitting opposite had helpless expressions on their faces, but they couldn't get angry, so they could only let them yell and scold. Commander Jules, Commander List, I have reviewed it more than once. This is an order from Naval Headquarters, and it is not something I can hinder. At this time, a Marine officer stood up and said in a helpless tone. This person has a mohawk hairstyle, dark purple long hair bundled behind his head, forming a bun, and a mustache that is also dark purple. He was wearing a lavender striped suit, a dark blue shirt, and a white tie. Wearing a white marine justice coat behind her, black leather shoes on her feet, and a samurai sword on her waist, it is the Rear Admiral of Naval Headquarters. What about the orders of Naval Headquarters? Can the Marines just grab the property of a city at will? City of Sculptures, Chief Jules of Skokie is a big fat man with a cigar in his mouth. When he growled at the flying squirrel, his fat body was trembling, and his white shirt was almost shaking. And the beige suit gives a split. Boom boom boom. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door, interrupting the quarrel. Advertisement. Afterwards, the door was pushed open, and a handsome young man with short silver hair stood at the door, and said slowly, I'm Major Naval Headquarters, Amphitheater Cross, I am ordered to come here. Everyone looked at Cross, and saw him with gentle eyes and a smile on his face, wearing a blue suit with tang black grass pattern, a pure white shirt inside, a justice coat, and a samurai sword on his waist. Let me introduce. When the flying squirrel saw Cross, he couldn't help but heaved a sigh of relief, and quickly said, Major Amphitheater Cross is the one who can resurrect those statues and sculptures. Naval Headquarters specially sent him here to solve this matter. Hello. Cross walked into the meeting room with a smile, closed the door, and walked straight to the side of the Language Mouse Rear Admiral. However, after knowing the true identity of Cross, a group of officials from the Sculpture City, Skokie City government actually showed a kind smile, without the angry appearance before. Hello, Major Cross, I'm City of Sculpture, Skokie's head of the commercial department, Luo Lai. It's a great honor to meet you. Thank you for your help to the citizens of the city. A tall and thin man rushed watching Cross slightly bend down to show respect, even the words contained respect. I'm Chief Sheriff Cohens, thank you for your help to the citizens of the city. I am Chief of the Taxation Department, Nick, thank you for your help to the citizens of the city before. Quote. Immediately afterwards, several city government officials present also bowed to Cross to show their respect. Major Cross, there is nothing we can do. After all, this is the property of the Skokie people, and no one can take it by force. Captain Jules said seriously, if your marine is really in urgent need, the master will give you half, but you have to buy it according to the market price. Such a scene made the Flying Squirrel Rear Admiral and the others involuntarily surprised. They never expected that these city government officials would respect Cross so much. Your Majesty, you are welcome. Advertisement. Commander Ors narrowed his eyes with a smile, and said repeatedly, last time, if Major Cross hadn't revived those sculptures and statues and allowed them to maintain the order in Skokie, in time, and didn't intensify the chaos in the city, it would definitely be countless civilian lives and properties have been lost. Major Cross is the benefactor of Skokie. Cross scratched the back of his head with some headaches, and said with a wry smile, you must know that Marine has killed and injured many sailors in order to maintain the peace of the sea. These resurrected sculptures and statues are excellent soldiers. Among them, it is too wasteful to eat. That's too polite, everyone, it's Marine's duty to protect innocent citizens. Cross looked at the fat man in front of him, Chief Shi, and was caught off guard by the other party's enthusiasm for a moment. Mr. Jules, you guys really gave me a big problem. It's too much, Your Excellency, this is only my responsibility. Cross smiled modestly, and then asked in puzzlement, but why did Your Excellency stop Marine this time? Cross was very surprised, quickly raised his hand to help, and said modestly. It should be. At this time, Commander Ors smiled happily, and hurriedly walked around the round table in front of Cross, grabbed his hand, and said enthusiastically, Major Cross, we met again. The last time was due to the tight schedule and work. I'm so busy, I really couldn't entertain you properly. This time, let us treat you well. Good money, good. After listening to it, Cross couldn't help but smile bitterly. He didn't expect these activated creatures to actually increase the prosperity of Sculpture City, Skokie, made a great contribution to economic growth, and were even praised by the citizens. As a patron saint, it is no wonder that the entire city is resisting the orders of naval headquarters. Hearing Cross mentioning this incident, Jules had a long face full of anger, and said in a deep voice, Major Cross, I didn't mean to target you and Marine, but the sculptures and statues you resurrected are all Skokie, the property of the people. You have taken away hundreds of sculptures and statues. It's fine if there is no compensation, after all, it is to protect countless people. What's more, there are 227 metal sculptures and 5,368 stone sculptures resurrected by you in Skokie. If they are all taken away by Marine, this is a good thing for Skokie, who has the city of sculptures, a huge blow. Therefore, the whole Skokie will refuse the order of naval headquarters. Commander Ors stared at Cross and said several most important reasons. In addition, these resurrected sculptures and statues are the most loyal guards of Skokie. Once they are lost, not only our city government officials, but even the citizens will think that they have lost the safest protection. Another point, because you have left so many resurrected sculptures and statues, Skokie has gained countless tourists and artists who come here this year, bringing the city great economic growth, so the city government and citizens who benefited couldn't afford to lose them. Advertisement Chapter 68 Conditions of both parties. Advertisement. Spend money to buy. Cross and a group of Marine generals were dumbfounded. Still buy at market price. Cross felt dizzy for Chief Ors' request. He didn't expect to spend money to buy the activated creature he made. Whether it is a metal sculpture or a stone statue, it is a work of art. But works of art can neither be eaten nor drank, so it is naturally not something that ordinary people can afford or are willing to buy. What's more, what Cross revives are medium-sized and large-scale sculptures and statues, which are very expensive, and only the rich and nobles with considerable wealth will consider buying them. In this way, if Marine wants to purchase thousands of resurrected sculptures and statues, it will cost an astronomical amount of money. But Mr. Ors, words are also very reasonable. Every sculpture or statue is the sculptor's creative effort, just like their children. Some sculptors living in distress naturally rely on their own carving skills for dinner. If Marine doesn't spend a penny, he will forcibly take away all the sculptures and statues. Wouldn't it be the same as unscrupulous pirates? Marine, as a righteous army and a maintainer of order, naturally must act within the rules and cannot break the rules at will. Otherwise, naval headquarters would not have sent Cross to assist the Flying Squirrel Rear Admiral in handling this matter. Commander Ors, your request is too high. Marine will never agree to it. Flying Squirrel Rear Admiral said angrily, if you insist on this, then we have to follow the wartime regulations, forcibly conscripted these resurrected statues and statues. Faced with the threat of the Flying Squirrel Rear Admiral, Chief Ors and other officials couldn't help but change their expressions slightly, feeling a little panicked. According to Marine's wartime regulations, Marine can be qualified to recruit all useful materials and personnel in cities directly under the world government depending on the situation. It's just that this kind of wartime regulation is only used when encircling powerful pirates. It was not even used when Marine was encircling and suppressing the piercing pirates in Sculpture City, Skokie last time. Advertisement. However, if Marine really followed the warrior regulations and forcibly conscripted all the resurrected sculptures and statues in the city of Sculpture, Skokie, then they would really jump out of anger. Flying Squirrel Rear Admiral, just kidding. At this time, BECC, the Minister of Commerce, Luo Lai, said neither humble nor overbearing. We don't want to force Marine, we just want to recover some of the losses of Skokie. After all, the loss of Skokie is too bad, the citizens will be dissatisfied with Marine too. Then show some sincerity. Flying Squirrel Rear Admiral said dissatisfiedly. We can accept sculptures and statues that are only half resurrected, but we cannot accept buying them at market prices. Flying Squirrel Rear Admiral, don't be angry, it's also our responsibility to support Marine, so I thought of another way. Yours Shi's chubby face suddenly showed a smile. He eagerly said to Cross, as long as 1 billion Bailey is compensated, we can give half of the resurrected sculptures and statues to Marine, but there is one condition. Conditions? What conditions? Rear Admiral, the flying squirrel, asked in confusion. At this time, Cross saw Jules' long expression, and suddenly realized that the previous conditions were clearly just a temptation, and the officials of the Skokie city government also understood that Marine could not spend the Starfish's military expenses to buy a bunch of revived metal and stone. Because for Marine, instead of spending a huge amount of military expenses to buy an army made of metal and stone, it is better to build a few more first-class warships, which is much more useful than thousands of living creatures. Therefore, the conditions that Mayor Ors said should be the goal of the Skokie city government. Don't worry, our condition is very simple, that is, we hope that Major Cross will come to Skokie once a year to revive some sculptures and statues for us, and then we will give some of the revived sculptures and statues to Marine. Yule Chief C said with a smile. To Marine, 1 billion Bailey is nothing more than a first-class warship. Ha ha ha, I have to say, Chief Jules is really calculating. I think this is your real purpose. Cross laughed. Just like the famous metal black dragon sculpture, the production cycle reached 5 months, which was time-consuming and labor-intensive, and it was not so easy to manufacture. Advertisement. It is undoubtedly very cost-effective to exchange a first-class warship for an army that is not afraid of death. Similarly, those sculptors, big and small, also very much hope that the sculptures and statues they make and carve can truly come alive, which is undoubtedly the greatest affirmation of their artistic attainments. Mayor Ors and other city government officials laughed and said nothing, just looked at Cross straight, hoping he would agree. In addition, we will step up the organization of manpower and form an industrialized production method. Cross looked at Chief Ors in front of him, slowly raised a finger, and said, 1 billion Bailey, we want 2/3, and I have one more condition. I help City of Sculpture, Skokie revive some sculptures and statues every year, but every year you have to help me create a batch of specific sculptures and statues, this is in exchange. Cross said in a deep voice. 2/3, yes, what else is there, just say it. Jules Shichang had a happy face. Medium-sized sculptures and statues that are as tall as a human can take 10 days and a half months at the fastest to create. Large sculptures and statues take longer. After listening to Cross's words, Mayor Or's eyes flickered, and he turned his head to make eye contact with a group of city government officials including the Minister of Commerce, Luo Lai, for a moment. That's right, for Cross's activation ability, there is no place better than Sculpture City, Skokie. Hearing this, everyone present looked at Cross in unison, even the flying squirrel Rear Admiral and others were no exception. In this way, you'd better concentrate your manpower and research a method of making sculptures and statues quickly. At that time, I will persuade Naval Headquarters to buy those sculptures and statues from you in the name of purchasing ordnance, but it's best not to be too expensive, otherwise Marine won't be able to buy too much, and then I'll help you revive some of the works of master sculptors every year, how about that? Cross thought while expressing his thoughts. Mr. Yurs frowned, and thought for a while in embarrassment. In the end, Jules turned around with a long smile, nodded to Cross and said, just as Major Cross said, 2/3 of the sculptures and statues will be resurrected for 1 billion Baileys. Advertisement Chapter 69A Cigar. Advertisement. Marineford Island Naval Headquarters 1. Jittery. The scorching sun had just hung in the sky when suddenly a long eagle cry sounded. A giant silver eagle descended from the sky, whipped up a gust of strong wind, and landed at the entrance of Building 1 of the Marine School, attracting the attention of some instructors and students. Finally home. With a relaxed expression, Cross jumped off the giant eagle's back, looked at Building 1 in front of him, and walked straight in, leaving only the silver giant eagle standing at the bottom of the steps, like a sculpture, unmoving. Soon, Cross came to the door of an office on the 6th floor, raised his hand and knocked on the door. Boom boom boom. Come in. As soon as the knock on the door fell, there was a sound. Cross pushed the door open and saw Zephyr sitting behind the desk at a glance, holding a quill in his hand, seriously processing documents. After hearing the sound of footsteps, Zephyr raised his head and saw that it was Cross who had entered the office. He lowered his head again and continued to process the documents at hand, and said casually, seeing the relaxed look on your face, it's obvious that things are going well. That's right, Teacher Zephyr, a settlement has been reached with the officials and citizens of Sculpture City. Marshal Kong also agreed, and soon 3,700 resurrected sculptures and statues will be transported to Naval Headquarters, responsible for Naval Headquarters defense work. Cross walked to the middle of the room with a smile, sat down on the sofa, and said in a relaxed tone. Number 3,700 living creatures. Zephyr frowned, subconsciously stopped what he was doing, looked up at Cross on the sofa, and asked suspiciously, I remember that Naval Headquarters sent as many as 8,000 reinforcements to the G5 branch, and even the G1 branch an additional 3,000 people have been dispatched, all of whom are elites. With only such a small number of activated legions, can they serve as the defense of the headquarters? Hearing this, Cross smiled and said with a smile, don't worry, Teacher Zephyr, although my babies are not many in number, they can all fight 10 against 1, or even 100 against 1. Zephyr looked at Cross in surprise, he didn't expect him to be so confident. Advertisement. But Zephyr thought about it again. A revived stone statue is really not something that ordinary sailors can win, because most people can't split the stone with a sword, and even with a gun, they can't do 1 or 2 shots just smash a stone sculpture that is as tall as a person. Therefore, it is not an exaggeration to say that a resurrected stone sculpture is so powerful, let alone a resurrected metal sculpture. At this time, Cross rummaged on the coffee table, and finally found a humidor, opened it, and there were 6 cigars in it. Hey, Lavena brand cigars, good stuff. Cross picked up a thick and long brown cigar, saw the tobacco flower mark on it, couldn't help showing surprise, then picked up the cigar unceremoniously and cut off a part of the cigar in his hand. Hey, little b asterisk 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 d, why don't you smoke and cut my cigar? Seeing that Cross actually cut a cigar from his collection, Zephyr couldn't help standing up in shock and anger. As a result, in the next second, Zephyr saw that Cross lit a match, skillfully placed the cigar over the flame, turned it gently to heat up, and finally lit the cigar. Hiss. Call. Cross glanced at Zephyr, took 2 puffs on the foot of the cigar indifferently, and then put it in his mouth, took a deep breath, let the smoke of the cigar stay in his mouth for a while, and felt a burst of chocolate. The silky aroma is slowly exhaled after a while. Zephyr looked at Cross in surprise, then put down the quill in his hand, walked out from behind the desk, sat on the sofa opposite Cross, and asked in surprise, when did you learn to smoke cigars? I haven't seen it before. Quote. Just a few days ago, after talking with the officials of Sculpture City Skokie, I ate there for a few days and drank a few times, and I learned it. Cross looked at the cigar in his hand, said with some embarrassment. He stayed in City of Sculpture, Skokie for 3 days, during which time he negotiated the batch of activated creatures and the subsequent exchange conditions, and commanded the activated creatures to set foot on Marine's transport ship, and after escorting the fleet out of the port, he only then returned to naval headquarters alone. But during these 3 days, he was warmly received by many officials, businessmen and great artists of Skokie. There were all kinds of fine wine and food, and there were even beauties who wanted to climb into his bed. Fortunately, he had a good heart firmly, resolutely refused, but still learned to smoke cigars. Ha 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 ha. Zephyr looked at the cigar in Cross's hand distress-edly, and said indignantly, you kids smoked me such an expensive cigar, if you don't cooperate with my work, see how I deal with you. Don't think about being lazy by yourself. And hide in a corner to practice. Advertisement. Shout. Stingy. No wonder the taste is so good. Mr. Zephyr, let me try 2 more. Cross's eyes lit up, and he looked at Weefa with a playful smile. The remaining 3,000 will be scrambled by royal families, nobles, wealthy businessmen, high-ranking officials and other high-ranking people all over the world. Do you think it is so easy to get it? It's just a cigar. Mr. Zephyr is too stingy. Cross yelled dissatisfied. Ask for flowers. Not a single one. I didn't discuss this matter. I'll give you the list of candidates for the elite class later. Zephyr folded his arms and said angrily, okay, I don't want to learn, I just want to learn from that slacker Kuzan. Remember, don't think about it. Be lazy, I'll stare at your big one. However, next time you dare to touch my cigar head, you will blow it up. How about, give me 2 more, and I promise to cooperate well in the future. Cross bit the cigar and said to Zephyr flatteringly. Cross was shocked and said reluctantly, it's just a cigar, there is no need to retaliate like this. You actually let me do the most tiring work, I'm only 16 years old. Zephyr glared at Cross viciously, then closed the cigar box with distress, put it in the drawer under the coffee table, and locked it. Zephyr glared at Cross viciously, and said bitterly, the selection of the 17th elite class is about to start, you will be the tester, and 50 students will be selected. Seeing this, Zephyr's face turned black, and he said sharply, don't even think about it, you have already smoked one, and I haven't settled with you yet. You know what a fart. Zephyr cursed angrily, and said, there are only 5,000 Rovena cigars a year, and 2,000 of them are for celestial dragons. Cross curled his lips in displeasure, and took another sip of his cigar. Zephyr laughed, and said nonchalantly, at least you still know how to come back, and you haven't been corrupted by their sugar-coated cannonballs. It's okay to learn to smoke cigars. The guy smoker started smoking when he was 15 years old. Men go out, drink and smoke, this kind of thing is inevitable. Advertisement Chapter 1 Accident Marine Level 1 Alert. Advertisement. See Circle Calendar 1509. Time flies by quickly, and it often slips away in a blink of an eye when people are not paying attention. In the past year, Marine has been developing and accumulating strength. The scale of pirates is also expanding, and the number is still increasing day by day. Celestial dragons are aloof, abusing their power at will, enjoying the convenience brought by their privileges, enjoying the pleasure of superiority, but they don't know that the careerists disturb the sea, and the pirates destroy the tranquility, making the thing called order be on the rise. A little bit of collapse. Perhaps one day, Mariajoy, known as the Holy Land, will also be challenged. Tisk tisk, it's amazing. In a spacious office, Cross was biting a cigar in a leisurely manner, sitting lazily on the sofa, with his legs resting on the coffee table, shaking his head and looking at the Shijing newspaper in his hand, and exclaiming from time to time. It turned out that the content of this latest newspaper just published several major events that happened in the half of February 13th, after the Grand Line. First, as the overlord of the New World, the captain of the BIGMOM pirates, Charlotte Linlin, the queen of the kingdom of Toto Land, launched a war because of sweets, and mobilized a huge fleet to capture a country, which really upset countless people. Fear. Second, the great pirate beasts Kaido was drinking too much not long ago, so he went to the Marine G5 branch to make trouble, and then he was defeated by Sakazuki, the base chief of the G5 branch, and Monkey D. Garp, who came to patrol, and was arrested. Use a huge prison ship to escort back to the deep-sea prison, impel down. As a result, on the way, Kaido woke up, broke free from the shackles of the seastone chains, destroyed the huge prison ship escorting him, and fled back to Wano Kuni's lair. Thirdly, a young swordsman named Dracula Mahawk challenged all over the sea and defeated 17 well-known sword masters one after another. The reviewer was deeply impressed, and commented, facing those sharp eagle-like eyes, even the strongest fighters will inevitably shudder. Fourth, a world government ship was attacked by Ant pirates in New World, and 6 senior world government officials on it were killed, which caused an uproar. The contents of the newspaper let Cross read with relish, and he was smoking a cigar while drinking green tea, which made his night shift very enjoyable. Although he is Zephyr's teaching assistant, in the Marine School, his responsibilities and powers are no less than any instructor. Therefore, he and the other 2 instructors are on duty tonight and must stay in the office to deal with all emergencies, incoming calls and emergencies. However, the office of the Marine School is on duty very leisurely, and usually nothing happens. Even if some students sneak out to play at night, it is the duty of the patrolling instructor. Unless a student has a sudden illness and needs to contact the doctor in the hospital, they need to call. Yawn. After a while, Cross finished reading the newspaper and felt a little sleepy, so he put out the half-smoked cigar in the ashtray, then stretched himself, and prepared to lie down on the sofa to sleep. Advertisement. He lay leisurely on the sofa, covered his body with the coat of justice, and closed his eyes to sleep. Hum. Buzz. Suddenly, the piercing siren sounded throughout the entire Marineford Island, and Cross, who had just laid down just now, sat up suddenly in shock. What's going on? Why is the siren going off? Cross's eyes widened, and he guessed with some hesitation. Wait, this is a first-level alert. Normal sirens would only be sounded at Naval Headquarters and Marineford Harbor. Even if they could be heard in Marineford Town and Marine School, it would not be noticeable. But now, the entire Marineford Island is shrouded in piercing sirens. It is obviously not an ordinary state of alert, and only the highest level of alert will appear. Cross quickly stood up, put on the coat of justice, hung the jingsho on the coffee table on his waist, and rushed out of the office in a hurry, and came to the corridor. What happened? Why is there a first-level alert? Could it be that lunatic beasts Kaido came to make trouble? Meanwhile, in the corridor at this time, 2 other instructors on duty also rushed out of their respective offices, both disheveled and nervous, in the corridor on the 5th floor towards Naval Headquarters. Cross saw that the Naval Headquarters, as tall as a mountain, was constantly flashing red lights under the night, coupled with the ear-piercing buzzing of sirens. It was obviously entering the most urgent state. You know, when Marines Buster Call operation is launched, Naval Headquarters will only enter the 2nd level of alert. But Naval Headquarters entered a state of alert, which is something Cross has never encountered. As far as he knows, only when Naval Headquarters is attacked will it trigger a level of alert. For example, before the opening of the Great Pirate Era, Golden Lion Shiki attacked Naval Headquarters, which triggered a first-level alert. Is it true that, as the instructor next to him said, madmen like Golden Lion Shiki and Kaido of the Beasts are attacking Naval Headquarters? Don't panic, Mr. Zephyr is not in the school, there are still a few main instructors. Cross calmly said in a low voice. Instructor Riley, you go to the student dormitory first and maintain the order of the students. If other instructors go, you will come back. No problem. Advertisement. Riley, instructor at the side, came back to his senses, responded quickly, and ran downstairs in a hurry. Thomas, instructor, call back to the office and ask Naval Headquarters what happened to them. Then, Cross ordered another instructor. Understood, I'll go right away. Thomas, instructor, nodded heavily, turned around and returned to his office. Bolu bolu bolu. However, at this time, there was a call of phone bugs in Cross's office. Cross turned his head and saw that it was the big phone bug on the desk calling. He guessed it was from Naval Headquarters. So, Cross hurried back to the office, walked quickly to the desk, and directly picked up the microphone on the back of the phone bug. I'm Cross, please say. It's me, Sora, who orders you now, go to the Holy Land Mariajoy immediately. Nani. When Cross heard Sora's words, he couldn't help showing doubts, and asked in puzzlement, Marshal, what happened? There is a slave riot in the Holy Land of Mariajoy, you should rush to support it now, the garrison of the Sabayati archipelago has been dispatched, you go and join them. Kong's tone was very urgent. Slave riot. Cross looked surprised, as if recalling something in 4.5. I don't have time to explain too much, Pelusolino is not in Naval Headquarters, only you have the ability to reach Mariajoy quickly, start now. Speaking of this, Sora paused for a moment, and then said meaningfully, the suppression of slaves is secondary, and the safety of celestial dragons must be guaranteed. Marshal, could it be that the Holy Land Defense Corps and the CIPHERPOL organization are just eating nothing? I understand, I will definitely protect the safety of the celestial dragons. At this moment, Cross's eyes flickered, as if he understood something, and he responded with righteous words road. Click. The next second, he put down the microphone, hung up the phone, and with a strange smile on his face, he whispered to himself, it turns out that the headquarters of the world government has been attacked, no wonder Naval Headquarters has a first-level alert. But I didn't expect the Mariajoy attack to happen, I almost forgot about it. Well done, Fisher Tiger. Advertisement Chapter 2 The Mariajoy Attack. Advertisement. Open black lens bracket Holy Land close black lens bracket Mariajoy. Once upon a time, as the headquarters of the world government, where the descendants of the Creator lived, this solemn place was forbidden to all outlaws and one of the safest places in the world. But now, countless slaves came out of their cells, their collars were taken off their necks, and they shouted, "Freedom!" and "Go home!" and ran out like crazy. Great! Run away! I'm free! I'm free! Go home! Go home! Go back, you slaves! Hurry up! Protect the celestial dragons, and don't let these lowly slaves hurt the nobles of the world. Extinguish the fire! Extinguish the fire quickly! Don't let the flames burn into between the powers! A raging fire burned in the majestic city, and the fire turned half of the sky red. All kinds of screams and shouts destroyed the tranquility and majesty of the past, and plunged the whole city into chaos. In the 800 years since the establishment of the world government, no one has attacked the Holy Land Mariajoy, and over time, the Holy Land Defense Corps has long since slackened. Facing the sudden chaos, the soldiers of the Holy Land Defense Corps also fell into chaos. Some wanted to suppress the 14 slaves, some wanted to protect the celestial dragons, and some wanted to put out the fire. The generals of the Holy Land Defense Corps couldn't stop it either. There are too many slaves in the Holy Land of Mariajoy, including humans, murlocs, and giants. There are slaves of almost all races. They are like a group of suppressed flames. Once the shackles on their bodies are lifted, they will be the fire that soared into the sky was just like the current scene. After many slaves were taken off their neck collars, they went crazy and set fire to the city, as if they wanted to burn down the entire city. Some even went straight to the residence of celestial dragons, wanting to attack those world nobles. But they seem to have forgotten that Pangu City, where the celestial dragons live, is one of the key points of defense in the Holy Land Mariajoy. There are not only elite soldiers of the Holy Land Defense Legion, but also elite agents of the CP organization. A place where the tormented Nukan can break through. However, this also caused most of the soldiers of the Holy Land Defense Legion to go to important places such as the residence of the Celestial Dragons to support the Celestial Dragons to prevent the Celestial Dragons from being harmed, thus reducing the suppression of the slaves for a time. Do your best to escape, you are free. In the chaotic city, under the cover of raging fire, a tall snapper murloc ran on the wide street, shouting the word, "Freedom," loudly, guiding the liberated slaves. Advertisement. After a while, as if they had a backbone, many slaves gathered around the murloc and followed him. However, this army of slaves fleeing in the Holy Land Mariajoy was too large, and soon attracted the attention of soldiers of the nearby Holy Land Garrison Legion and agents of the CP organization. 5,000 Wajang fists, iron body, bang. After a loud bell-like sound, a strong wind spread, and an agent flew upside down like a cannonball. After knocking down several people in a row, he fell heavily on the street. Damn, this man is so strong. The surrounding agents and soldiers looked shocked, looking at the red-skinned murloc in disbelief. I'm Fisher Tiger. I'm here to rescue the compatriots imprisoned here. World government, I'm fighting for freedom. This man wears a headscarf, has thick curly hair, and has a wide big the snapper murloc, with a beard and a little stubble on his upper lip, let out a roar, rushing towards the enemy in front of him like a lunatic with an unstoppable momentum. As the headquarters of the world government composed of more than 170 franchised countries, Holy Land Mariajoy is the safest place in the world, and naturally it is also the place with the most stringent defenses. It is impossible to achieve it without the courage to do everything possible to turn the world upside down. Purpose. Inside the brightly lit room of power, 5 elders sat on the sofa with a gloomy face, listening to the sound of shouting and killing coming from outside and listening to the various voices coming from the phone in his hand. 5 elders, the homes of the nobles of the world are under siege by slaves. No, 5 elders, the fire is still spreading and it's getting out of control. 5 elders, there are too many slaves running out, and we don't have enough people to suppress them. The atmosphere in the hall was extremely depressing, not only because of all kinds of bad news. Holy Land, the attack on Mariajoy was an unprecedented major accident. It was a challenge to the world government. What about Marine support? After a long time, the blonde 5 elders asked in a cold voice. Advertisement. He understands that in the face of such a sudden attack, the entire Holy Land Mariajoy is in chaos. The Holy Land Defense Legion and the CP organization, which are trying their best to ensure the safety of the Celestial Dragons, are already unreliable and unable to organize rioting slaves, so they can only pin their hopes on the Marines' body. An agent wearing a white suit, a white overcoat, and a red mask with a painted face came forward, and replied in a deep voice, "The garrison of the Sabayati archipelago has been dispatched and is trying to block Red Harbor and the entire Sabayati archipelago. As for naval headquarters, the first batch of troops has set off again, but it will take at least 2 to 3 hours to reach Red Harbor. However, they said that a major from the headquarters named Amphitrite Cross was sent to support him from the air. At this time, it should be here soon." The agent took out a piece of silver from his pocket. He checked the pocket watch and checked the time. What use is a major 380? 5 elders with a figure 8 beard asked angrily, "Where's Pelusolino?" Crane Vice Admiral said that Pelusolino Vice Admiral is not in Marineford, so there is no way to go to Mariajoy. The G1 branch on the other side, Sengoku Admiral is coming, but it will take a while. The agent replied. Damn it. 5 elders in kimono had cold eyes, and he smashed the samurai sword in his hand to the ground heavily, made a bang sound, and roared angrily, "All are incompetent people. Incompetent, incompetent. Jittery." At the same time, a long eagle cry sounded in the sky. A giant silver eagle broke through the thick clouds and circled continuously over the holy land of Mariajoy. Cross sat on the back of the silver giant eagle, looked down at Mariajoy who was caught in the raging fire below, and listened to the countless screams and shouts from below, and couldn't help showing a mocking expression. Tisk tisk, what a spectacular scene. It's a pity that I didn't bring a camera, so I couldn't take pictures of this historic scene. While speaking, big eagles, giant birds, griffins, gargoyles, hundreds of living creatures of all kinds also flapped their wings and gathered behind him like a dark cloud. Go ahead and protect those celestial dragons. G. Roar. Cucko. Advertisement Chapter 3 First Meeting the Murloc Hero. Advertisement. Go away, you lackeys of the celestial dragons. Get out and go home. Don't stop, keep running. Keep running. The raging fire burned the green vegetation and woods in the city, turning the dark night sky red, filling the air with a scorching heat, crowds running around everywhere, screaming and chaos almost filling the entire city. The Murloc who claimed to be Fisher Tiger showed great strength and led the freed people to fight fiercely with the soldiers of the Holy Land Defense Corps who came from all directions. However, to say it went smoothly, Fisher Tiger's actions were also very smooth. The slaves imprisoned in the Holy Land Mariajoy were all released, and they even rampaged in groups in the city, defeating one group after another. The army of the Holy Land Defense Corps who came to stop them did not stop at all. But to say that it is cruel and difficult, the corpses all over the ground also prove this point. The spacious streets of Shiraishi have long been stained red with blood, and countless corpses are lying on the ground, including humans, Murlocs, and fur tribes. Even Fisher Tiger, who disturbed the entire Holy Land of Mariajoy by himself, was panting heavily exhausted, blood slid down his cheeks, and he didn't know whether it was his own blood or the blood of the enemy. I don't know how long it has passed. Tiger stopped, looked around tiredly, and found that thousands of free people had gathered around him, including humans, Murlocs, giants, fur tribes, long-handed tribes, of almost every race. However, in front of them was a tall and thick city wall and a huge city gate. In the open space in front of the city gate, hundreds of soldiers of the Holy Land Defense Legion wore full armor, armed with lances, spears, two-handed swords and other weapons, and lined up neatly in front of Tiger and others. Call. Tiger let out a long mouthful of turbid air, then hammered his chest hard, and roared like a roar, "We are free." In the next second, Tiger rushed out ferociously and fearlessly. Kill backquote. Thousands of people shouted in unison, all waving the weapons in their hands, and rushed up with Fisher Tiger. Block them. The leading general shouted, and led his subordinates to charge without fear. In an instant, the two sides collided like two turbulent tides, setting off bloody waves on the spot. Jittery. Advertisement. The long cry of the eagle did not attract anyone's attention. A silver giant eagle hovered in the sky, and Cross sat on the back of the giant eagle expressionlessly, watching the tragic battle below with cold eyes. Among the chaotic crowd, the red-skinned Murloc caught his attention. He only saw the other party punch one by one, knocking down soldiers one by one. Even the elite agents of the CP organization were not his opponents. Hit the water. Tiger let out a low cry, raised his hand, and shot out water droplets mixed with water and blood, piercing the general's body with a bang. The battle didn't last long, and all the soldiers of the Holy Land Defense Corps were wiped out, and hundreds of slaves of various races who had just been freed were buried with them. Rumbling. Afterwards, Tiger stepped forward and forcefully pushed open the huge city gate in front of him, only to find that in front of him was a section of wide steps going down hundreds of meters. It turns out that they have already reached the top of Red Harbor. As long as they go down the wide steps several hundred meters long, and then go down by the bubble car, they can reach Red Harbor, reach the Sabayati archipelago, and completely escape from the Holy Land of Mariajoy. In fact, in the final analysis, the Holy Land Defense Legion has been at peace for too long and lacks experience in dealing with emergencies. In addition, the city of the Holy Land Mariajoy is too large, and the main force has to protect the celestial dragons and 5 elders. Rampage in the city. More than half of the door to freedom has been opened, and Tiger hastily directed the crowd to take the bubble car to the Red Harbor below. Goodbye. No, never again, dirty place. Tiger took a deep look at the Holy Land of Mariajoy, which was shrouded in raging fire, then turned around resolutely, and took the bubble car with everyone. Meanwhile, not only the holy site of Mariajoy was in turmoil, but also the Sabayati archipelago just below the red line. The large marine troops were dispatched overnight, alarming many people. In addition, the news of the attack on the Holy Land Mariajoy was leaked, allowing countless lawless criminals to find opportunities to commit crimes in various island towns unscrupulously. For a while, the marine stationed in the Sabayati archipelago wanted to maintain law and order while reinforcing the Holy Land Mariajoy, and fell into the embarrassment of fighting on multiple fronts. In Red Harbor, the swarms of slaves fought for freedom and broke down the weak defense of Marine in one fell swoop. In fact, the garrison of the Sabayati archipelago knew that the crazy crowd in front of them were slaves from the Holy Land of Mariajoy, so many people felt pity for them, so they deliberately released the water and let them escape. You fish, how dare you do it? You actually made a big fuss about the Holy Land Mariajoy, how did you get in there? Be obedient and let him go, maybe it will make your death easier. In a dark alley, Tiger covered in blood was stopped by several CP agents in black suits and blocked in the middle of the alley. Advertisement. That kind of dirty place, I don't bother to get involved. Tiger sneered, forcibly straightened his exhausted body, and roared sharply, I climbed up the red line with bare hands, you lackeys of celestial dragons, you can't think of it. You wanna die. Finger pistol. In an instant, the battle took place in this dark alley. Call. Suddenly, a strong wind hit, rolled up the dust, and interrupted the battle of several people. Everyone present saw that a giant silver eagle descended from the sky and stopped on the roof of a nearby house, and a young sailor jumped off the eagle's back and looked down at them. Marine. Tiger's face changed slightly, and his heart sank. Sea soldier, just in time, help us catch this guy. An agent shouted. This guy is the culprit who attacked Mariajoy. That's right. Then I really can't let it go. With a cold face, Cross glanced quietly, Zhao Laohao, at the few people present, then suddenly jumped off the roof of the house and landed in the middle of the two CP agents. In the next second, he swung his arms outward, and his fists directly hit the faces of the two agents on the left and right. The two agents didn't know what happened, they were punched unconscious, and fell to the ground. What are you doing? Immediately, including Fisher Tiger, several people present looked at Cross dumbfounded. Kanglang. Cross had no desire to explain, so he pulled out the Jing Shu from his waist on the spot, and slashed towards the nearest agent. UB ********** D, want to betray. Ah, a cold light suddenly appeared, like a beautiful silver moon, interrupting the agent's angry scolding. Accompanied by the soft sound of Hu Kai, into the flesh, the strong body was chopped off in the middle, bursting out soul-stirring blood, followed by a shrill scream. Advertisement Chapter 4 Tiger's Pride. Advertisement. Human life is very fragile, and sometimes just accidentally bumping it may cause injuries such as broken internal organs, which may lead to death. But human life is also very tenacious. Even if it is cut in half and the body is cut into two pieces, there are still people who can write 7 characters of miserable on the ground before dying. The CP agent in front of him was like this, his upper body screamed and crawled on the ground, his lower half% body convulsed on the ground, dragging his bloody intestines on the ground, looking extremely tragic. However, Cross has no habit of tormenting people. With a twist of his wrist, the samurai sword pierces the opponent's neck with a puff, like an arrow off the string. The tip of the knife protrudes from the throat, together with the trachea, carotid artery and all the nerves were severed, which made this person less tortured. Looking at the young man in front of him, Tiger couldn't help feeling a little dazed. There was no expression on the handsome face of the other party, a cigar was biting in his mouth, he was wearing a blue suit with a black arabesque pattern, a pure white shirt inside, a justice coat, and a samurai sword that was still dripping blood, it is indeed Marine. But what is he doing? Infighting. Still helping me. Go away, this guy is a traitor. Go back and expose him. On the other side of the alley, the remaining two agents were shocked and furious, watching their companions being knocked unconscious by this sudden young sailor, and beheading one. Panicked and fled to 740. Although Tiger didn't understand why this young sailor wanted to kill one of his own people, he understood that this was an opportunity, so he decided to make a decisive move. Hit the water. The water droplets mixed with red blood shot out like a large caliber bullet, and the speed was so fast that it rubbed against the air with a sound of shoo, instantly piercing through the body of a CP agent. Puff. The agent who was hit by the water droplets spat out blood, with an unbelievable expression on his face, his body suddenly rushed forward, and fell heavily on the ground, the blood soon stained the ground beneath him. Damn it. The remaining agent turned pale with fright, and suddenly looked back, only to see the young sailor staring at him coldly, holding the samurai sword in his hand behind his back, and posing for a throwing posture. Go. Advertisement. In the next second, Cross let out a low cry, and threw the jingsho in his hand vigorously. Driven by Cross's strange power, the katana flew towards the target at an extremely fast speed like a javelin. Paper Arts Boneless. The only remaining agent took a deep breath, and his body turned into a C shape. Scandium. In an instant, open black lens bracket Jingsho close black lens bracket passed through the air like lightning, and penetrated deeply into the ground behind the agent. But almost at the same time, Cross raised his right hand, stretched out his index finger to the front, and shouted softly, "Flying guns." Boom. The invisible air bomb flew out, hitting the agent's chest like a bullet. At the same time, just because the agent dodged a blow, before he could show his joy, he heard a sound like a gunshot, and then felt a pain in his chest, and a blood hole the size of a thumb appeared in his parts of the heart. The agent opened his mouth, but couldn't say anything, so he knelt down softly, and finally lay on the ground, completely losing his breath. Seeing this, Cross raised his hand leisurely, and blew on his right index finger, a wisp of green smoke rose slowly from his fingertips. At this point, the 5 CP agents in the alley were wiped out. Call. Tiger breathed out a sigh of relief, then turned around, looked at the young sailor behind him, and said in a concentrated voice, "Who are you? Why are you helping me?" He has already noticed that the other party has no killing intent towards him. Hurry up, the naval headquarters fleet is coming soon. Cross didn't answer Tiger's question, but said lightly, "Next time we meet, we will be enemies." Tiger was silent for a while, then walked towards Cross, and Cross also walked towards him. Advertisement. But just when the two were about to pass each other, Type BEBG stopped suddenly, stared at Cross with red eyes, and asked in a depressed tone, "Why? You Marines claim to be righteous, why do you want to defend celestial dragons kind of crap?" Hearing this, Cross also stopped in his tracks, looked at the Murloc hero in front of him blankly, and replied softly, "Actually, what Marine maintains is not celestial dragons, but the order of this world." If there is a conflict between Marine and world government, the order of the entire world will collapse, and more innocent people will be hurt even more. Cross fell silent, because he could hear the pride and freedom in Fisher Tiger's words, and even felt that he was a little moved. I'm really crazy. I actually persuaded others to become pirates. A unknown currency AA. Afterwards, after wiping the blade of Jingshu clean, he put the blade back into its sheath, and threw down the rag in his hand, then turned his head to look at the two agents who had been knocked unconscious by him, and ordered in a cold voice, "Get rid of them." The silver giant eagle raised its head and let out a cry, then swooped down from the roof of the house suddenly, creating a gust of wind. Tiger looked at Cross in surprise, then smiled and waved his hands, then strode away without thinking. Speaking of this, Cross sighed lightly, and continued, "Also, instead of questioning me here, you might as well think about how to avoid being hunted down next. After hundreds of years." Cross whispered to himself, walked up to Jingshu, stuck on the ground, bent down and drew out his samurai sword, and tore off a piece of clothes from a dead agent who was wiping Jingshu blade. Cross didn't speak, didn't look back, and waited until Fisher Tiger's footsteps disappeared before continuing to move. "Gee, let's go to New World. You are the first person to attack Mariajoy. The world government will not let you go. Marine will also be under the pressure of the world government and celestial dragons, and will go all out to arrest you. Marine can do it, just make the world as fair as possible." Suddenly, Cross took a deep look at Fisher Tiger, and said in a deep voice, "The Whitebeard pirates can protect you. What's more, absolute justice and fairness did not exist in this world from the very beginning. Whitebeard pirates. Thank you, I will consider it." At this time, Tiger smiled and said, "By the way, thank you for your help. Next time we meet, I will treat you to a drink from the Fishman Island." Hearing this, Tiger laughed without fear, and said boldly, "Before this incident, I never thought of leaving Red Line alive. Now I can live for a while, it is enough." Advertisement Chapter 5 Wonderful Fate. Advertisement. Run, run, ha ha ha, hand over the things. Help, help me. Damn pirates, go, die. Under the night, the Sabayati archipelago was in chaos, with screaming crowds everywhere, and fires were lit everywhere, adding to the sense of chaos. Escaped slaves, reckless pirates, looters, desperate marines, panicked civilians. Tonight's Sabayati archipelago is even more lively than a festival. Cross sits on the back of a giant silver eagle, patrolling the various islands of the Sabayati archipelago from the air, constantly suppressing rebellious pirates and lawbreakers, and sometimes helping people who should be helped. Suddenly, he saw a dozen men with weapons surrounding three girls in the woods on the island below. Without thinking too much, he drove the giant eagle under him to dive down. Yaw underscore. The sharp eagle's cry suddenly sounded over the forest. A silver giant eagle with a wingspan of more than 5 meters swooped down from the sky, like a silver lightning flashed over everyone's heads, and was grabbed by Vice Admiral from the crowd and brought directly into the air. "Let me go! Let me go!" The man was so frightened that he screamed and kept struggling in the air. "You sure?" With a strange expression on his face, Cross stretched his head to look at the ground below him. He estimated that the height was about 100 meters, so he let the giant eagle loosen its claws and dropped the opponent. "No, no, BWGB, B. The man screamed and fell quickly, hitting the green grass like a heavy object, making a dull bang, and fell to pieces on the spot. "It's Marine. Run. Don't run, he's alone. Shoot. Shoot him down." Advertisement. More than a dozen lawbreakers were in a mess, the timid ones turned their heads and ran away, and the hard-nosed guys directly raised their muskets, shooting at the Cross hovering in the sky with a bang bang bang. For a while, there was a lot of gunfire, and the fireworks at the muzzle of the gun were particularly obvious in the night. Many lead bullets hit the body of the giant silver eagle, making the sound of burning golden iron. However, where the lead bullet hit the silver giant eagle, there were only faint dents, and there was no other effective damage. If there is a clear data damage in the game, it will only be -1, -1, -1, -1, -1. As this bird made of steel, someone looked shocked and yelled in horror. Seeing that the gun attack was ineffective, the morale of this group of people suddenly plummeted. Even the toughest guy dropped the weapon in his hand, and fled in all directions with his companions. Soon, Cross didn't even make a move. Relying on the power of this giant silver eagle, he easily dispersed the group of lawbreakers, and killed 7 or 8 people with his sharp claws in the process. After a while, Cross returned to the woods, let the giant silver eagle fall, and jumped off the eagle's back himself. The 3 girls huddled together in horror, looking at Cross and the huge silver eagle behind him in fear. Cross looked at the 3 girls in front of him, one with long black hair, one with long green hair, and one with long orange hair. They were about 15 or 16 years old. The clothes on their bodies were a little tattered, which made him feel a little familiar. "I've seen it somewhere, but I can't remember it for a while. Don't wander around at night, just find a place to hide." Cross, biting his cigar, walked up to the 3 girls unhurriedly, and said softly, "Where is your home? Is there a way to go back by yourself?" The 3 girls looked at the young sailor in front of them with surprised expressions. Among them, the girl with long black hair plucked up her courage and asked softly, "Didn't you come to catch us?" Cross smiled and said softly, "You are free, why should I arrest you?" Hearing what Cross said, the 3 girls felt a little relieved, and sat on the ground wearily. "I can't take you home, do you have a place to go?" Cross said softly. The 3 girls looked at each other and shook their heads anxiously. Suddenly, Cross's face froze slightly, and he pressed his left hand on the handle of Jingsho's knife at his waist, looking past the three girls in front of him, and looked towards a big tree. It was discovered. A figure walked out from behind the big tree, the lens on his face reflected a gleam of light in the moonlight, and said with a chuckle, "Young people these days are really incredible, it seems that there is another excellent sailor in Marine." Advertisement. Under the moonlight, the man had long white curly hair, a beard on his chin, and a straight scar over his right eye. He was wearing a worn white overcoat, and an orange jacket with black buttons inside. The pants are a pair of dark red cropped pants, and straw sandals are worn on the feet. "You are Pluten Rayleigh." The moment Cross saw the other party, he couldn't help holding his breath, and the pupils in his eyes instantly shrank to the size of pinholes. "Asking for flowers. You can't be wrong. The man in front of you is the former deputy captain of the Luogia pirates, known as the right arm of the One Piece, the famous Pluten Rayleigh." Hehehehe. Rayleigh touched the white beard on his chin with a smile, and said, "I thought I could fool the young sailors, but I didn't expect to be recognized." Call. Cross looked puzzled, licked his somewhat dry lips, then took a puff of the cigar, slowly exhaled the smoke, and said in a deep voice, "Are you kidding? The number 2 member of the Luogia pirates, the legendary man, how could it be possible? Can't recognize it." To be honest, he was a little excited now, although he knew that Rayleigh was on this island, but he didn't expect to meet the legend under such circumstances. "Pluten is in the past tense, I'm just a retired old guy now," Rayleigh said with a smile. "Also, I have a relationship with these three, how about I send them home?" 0. At this moment, after listening to Rayleigh's words, Cross seemed to think of something, and if he said meaningfully, "The majestic Pluten can help save people, these three beautiful ladies could not be the descendants of some great pirates, right?" Quote. "If I haven't misunderstood the wrong person, the three of them should be Amazon lily people, I'm right." Rayleigh smiled and winked at the three girls. Cross's expression remained unchanged, but he secretly thought in his heart, "Sure enough, it is them, the three Boya sisters in the future. Then, this black-haired girl should be the future Pirate Empress Boa Hancock, who was known as the most beautiful woman in the world." Cross took a good look at the other party. Although he looked dirty, he still showed a good appearance. Afterwards, Cross nodded and said irrefutably, "If they agree, I have no objection." The three Boya sisters looked at Rayleigh, then at Cross, and finally nodded, agreeing to follow Rayleigh. Although Cross saved them, Cross is a Marine after all, and naturally they are not in the same camp as them. "Thank you for saving us, can you tell me your name?" Boa Hancock stood up and looked at Cross seriously. "I haven't met you, and you don't need to know my name." Cross smiled and shook his head, turned his back to the three Boya sisters, walked leisurely towards the silver giant eagle, waved his hands casually, and said, "If you really want to know, please remember that the sea is magical, maybe we will meet again in the future, and then I will introduce myself. Tien." Advertisement.